When Isabella Kane saw the two pink lines on that test, she didn't cry. She didn't panic. She stood in the marble bathroom of her penthouse, staring at the impossible result, and felt her entire empire shift beneath her feet. The father, a man she barely knew. A single encounter, a mistake she couldn't undo. Ryan Cole, mid-level project manager, single dad, a man who lived in a world so far removed from hers they might as well have been on different planets. And now, whether she liked it or not, their lives were about to collide in the messiest, most public way imaginable. If you want to see how a billionaire handles an unplanned pregnancy with an employee she slept with exactly once, stick around until the end. And hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Isabella Kane didn't do mistakes. She didn't stumble. She didn't second guess. She built a tech empire from nothing, turned a startup into a billion-dollar corporation before she turned 28, and now, at 30, she sat at the top of a glass tower that bore her name in steel letters 20 feet high. She controlled boardrooms full of men twice her age. She signed deals that moved markets. She was untouchable. Until she wasn't. The pregnancy test sat on the edge of her bathroom sink, mocking her with its cheerful pink lines. 2 of them, clear as day. She'd taken 3 more just to be sure, and they all said the same thing. Pregnant. Impossibly, horrifyingly pregnant. Isabella gripped the marble countertop, her knuckles going white. Her reflection stared back at her, perfectly styled dark hair, sharp cheekbones, eyes that had stared down investors and competitors without flinching. Right now, those eyes looked lost. She knew exactly when it happened. 6 weeks ago. The product launch party. Too much champagne. Too much adrenaline from closing the biggest deal of her career. And Ryan Cole standing near the bar looking like he didn't belong at a party full of sharks in designer suits. Ryan, the project manager from the development team. She'd noticed him before, hard not to, with those broad shoulders and that quiet competence. But she'd never let herself think about it. Isabella didn't date employees. She barely dated at all. Her last relationship had ended 2 years ago when the guy couldn't handle that she made 10 times his salary and worked twice his hours. But that night, something had shifted. Maybe it was the victory. Maybe it was the way Ryan had congratulated her without the usual ass-kissing, just a genuine, "you earned this," that cut through all the corporate noise. Maybe it was the way he'd looked at her when she'd asked if he wanted to get out of there, like he saw her as a woman instead of a walking stock portfolio. One night. One stupid, reckless, completely out-of-character night. And now this. Isabella's phone buzzed on the counter. Her assistant, Priya, with the morning schedule. Board meeting at 9. Investor calls at 11. Lunch with the CFO. A conference panel at 3. Her life, marching forward like it always did, demanding her attention, her focus, her control. She grabbed the tests and shoved them into the bathroom trash, burying them under tissues. Then she pulled them back out. She couldn't just throw them away. What if someone found them? The cleaning service came on Thursdays. The thought of some stranger discovering her secret, selling it to a tabloid. Get it together, she muttered to herself. She wrapped the tests in toilet paper, then a plastic bag, then another bag, and finally stuffed the whole bundle into her purse. She'd dispose of them at the office. In the private bathroom no one else used. The face in the mirror looked calm now, controlled. That was better. Isabella Kane didn't do mistakes. But if she had made one, she sure as hell wasn't going to let it destroy everything she'd built. The office felt different that morning. Isabella walked through the glass doors of Kane Technologies like she always did, heels clicking on polished floors, assistants scattering to fetch her coffee and briefing documents, the familiar hum of controlled chaos. But underneath it all, she felt like a fraud. Her body didn't feel different yet. No morning sickness, no fatigue, nothing to give her away, just the knowledge sitting in her chest like a stone. Ms. Kane, Priya appeared at her elbow with a tablet and an espresso. The board's already in the conference room. Mitchell's been asking about the quarterly projections. Mitchell can wait 5 minutes. Isabella took the espresso, then paused. Caffeine. Was she supposed to avoid caffeine? She had no idea. She'd never thought about pregnancy before, never planned for it, never wanted it. She set the cup down on Priya's desk. Actually, bring me water, still not sparkling. Priya's eyebrows rose a fraction. Isabella lived on espresso, but she just nodded. Right away. The The board meeting dragged. Mitchell Chen, the CFO, Monterevitz, droned on about profit margins, while Isabella's mind wandered to impossible questions. How long before she started showing? What would the board say? What would the press say? Billionaire knocked up by her own employee, the headlines wrote themselves. And Ryan? What the hell was she going to tell Ryan? Isabella? She snapped back to the present. 8 faces stared at her from around the conference table. Mitchell had apparently asked her a question. I'm sorry, what? The Singapore expansion. Do you want to move forward with the office lease or wait until next quarter? Move forward. If we wait, we lose momentum. The answer came automatically. She'd been making these decisions for so long she could do it in her sleep. The meeting wrapped up. Isabella escaped to her office and locked the door. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, gray and drizzling. 43 floors up, removed from the mess of normal life. She pulled out her phone and opened the company directory. Ryan Cole's profile stared back at her. Project manager, development division, 5 years with the company. Before that, a smaller tech firm in the suburbs. No Ivy League pedigree, no fancy connections. He'd worked his way up the hard way. There was a photo, professional headshot, probably taken at the last company retreat. He looked uncomfortable in front of the camera, like he'd rather be anywhere else. She remembered that about him, how he'd skipped most of the corporate social events, always said he had to get home to his daughter. His daughter. Right. Ryan had a kid, 6 or 7 years old maybe? Isabella had never paid much attention to the personal lives of her employees. She approved their salaries and promotions based on performance, not their family situations. But now his family situation was her problem. Her phone buzzed, a text from her doctor's office confirming her appointment for next week. She'd called them that morning, after the 4th positive test, trying to keep her voice steady while the receptionist cheerfully told her to come in for blood work. Isabella set the phone down and pressed her palms against the cool glass of the window. Below, people moved through the streets like ants, normal people with normal problems. She'd spent so long climbing above all that, building walls between herself and the kind of messy, unpredictable life that could derail everything. And now the mess had found her anyway. She avoided him for 3 days. It wasn't hard. Ryan worked on a different floor, in a different division. Their paths rarely crossed unless Isabella made them cross. She deleted 2 meeting invites that would have put them in the same room. She left the office early one day when she saw his name on the elevator roster heading up to her floor. But by Thursday, she couldn't put it off anymore. The doctor had confirmed it, 8 weeks along. Healthy pregnancy so far. A due date in January. All of it feeling surreal, like she was hearing about someone else's life. She had to tell him. The longer she waited, the worse it would get. Isabella sat in her office after everyone else had gone home, the city lights flickering on below. She drafted and deleted a dozen messages. Finally, she just typed, "Can you come to my office tomorrow at 6 p.m.? Private matter." She hit send before she could second-guess it. Ryan's response came 5 minutes later. "Sure. Everything okay? We'll talk tomorrow," she wrote back. She didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined the conversation. How his face would change when she told him. Whether he'd be angry or scared or indifferent. Whether he'd think she was trying to trap him like some kind of corporate power play. The thought made her sick. Isabella had never needed to trap anyone for anything. She'd earned every damn thing she had. But how would it look to everyone else? The billionaire CEO, sleeping with a mid-level employee and ending up pregnant. The power imbalance alone would spark 1,000 rumors. People would assume she'd pressured him, or he'd tried to seduce his way up the ladder, or any number of ugly explanations that turned a stupid mistake into a scandal. By the time her alarm went off at 6, Isabella felt like she'd been hit by a truck. She dragged herself through the day, snapping at her assistant, canceling a lunch meeting, locking herself in her office to avoid questions. At 5:30, she touched up her makeup and straightened her blazer. Armor. That's what her suits were. A uniform that reminded everyone who they were dealing with. At exactly 6 o'clock, there was a knock on her door. "Come in." Ryan stepped inside and Isabella's stomach lurched. He looked the same as he had that night. Dark hair slightly messy, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up like he'd been working late. Tired, but solid. Real in a way most people in her world weren't. "Hey," he said, closing the door behind him. You wanted to see me? Sit down. He sat. His eyes tracked her face, cautious. Is this about the Anderson project? Because we're ahead of schedule. It's not about work. That stopped him. He leaned back in the chair, waiting. Isabella had rehearsed this 100 times. In every version, she was calm and collected. She laid out the facts, proposed a solution, maintained control. Instead, she just said it. I'm pregnant. The silence stretched. Ryan's face didn't change at first, like his brain hadn't processed the words. Then his eyes widened slightly. What? I'm pregnant? 8 weeks. I found out a few days ago, and you're telling me because... His voice trailed off as the math clicked into place. 8 weeks. The launch party had been 6 weeks ago. His face went pale. Oh. Yeah. You're sure? I've taken 6 tests and seen a doctor. I'm sure. Ryan stood up, paced to the window, ran a hand through his hair. Okay. He turned back to her. What are you planning to do? I don't know yet. The admission felt like failure. Isabella always knew what to do. I wanted to tell you before I made any decisions. Right. He laughed, a sharp sound with no humor in it. Jesus, I didn't even know your first name until that night. It's Isabella. I know that now. He paced again, thinking. Does anyone else know? No, just you and my doctor. Okay, that's... Okay. He stopped in front of her desk. Look, I'm not going to pretend this isn't completely insane, but if you decide to go through with it, I'm not walking away. Isabella blinked. What? I'm not walking away, Ryan repeated, his voice steady now. I've got a daughter. I know what it takes to raise a kid, and I know what it's like when one parent disappears. So if there's going to be a baby, I'm going to be part of its life. That's not negotiable. She hadn't expected that. Anger, maybe. Denial. Accusations. Not this immediate, stubborn certainty. Ryan, I'm not asking you to... I know you're not asking. I'm telling you. He met her eyes. You don't get to shut me out of this. I don't care how much money you have or what your title is. This is my kid too. Something in Isabella's chest loosened. She'd spent 3 days terrified that she'd be doing this alone, that he'd run or demand she handle it quietly or try to use it against her. Instead, here he was, already digging in his heels. I haven't decided anything yet, she said quietly. I know. I'm just telling you where I stand. Ryan shoved his hands in his pockets. When do you need to decide? I have a few weeks. Okay. He nodded. Then take the time. Think about it. And when you're ready to talk again, you know where to find me. He started toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, that night wasn't a mistake for me. The timing was bad, and obviously this is complicated as hell. But I don't regret it. Isabella didn't know what to say to that. She just watched him leave, the door clicking shut behind him. Then she put her head in her hands and let herself shake. A week later, she made the decision. She was keeping it. The baby. Her baby. The moment she admitted it to herself, sitting alone in her penthouse at 2 a.m, something settled in her chest. Terror, yes, but also a strange, fierce certainty. She'd spent her whole life building something from nothing. She could do this too. But first she had to tell Ryan. She called him this time, not a text. He answered on the second ring, voice rough with sleep. Isabella? I'm keeping it. Silence. Then, okay. I wanted you to know. Thank you for telling me. He paused. Do you want to meet? Talk about next steps? Not yet. I need to figure some things out first. Okay, but Isabella? Yeah? You're not doing this alone. I meant what I said. She hung up before the unexpected sting in her eyes could turn into tears. The rumors started 2 weeks later. Isabella had been careful. No one at the office knew. She'd scheduled her doctor's appointments as investor meetings on her calendar. She'd kept her distance from Ryan, treating him the same as any other employee. But somehow, people noticed. It started as whispers. Isabella caught her assistant and the HR director huddling in the break room, their conversation cutting off when she walked past. In meetings, people watched her more carefully, like they were looking for clues. Then Mitchell cornered her after a board meeting. "We need to talk," he said, steering her into an empty conference room. "About?" "About whatever's going on with you." Mitchell was 63, gray-haired, sharp as a knife. He'd been her CFO since the beginning, and he didn't pull punches. "You've been distracted. You canceled 3 major meetings last week, and you left the office at 5 yesterday. You never leave at 5. I had a personal matter." "Does this personal matter have anything to do with Ryan Cole?" Isabella's blood went cold. "What?" "Someone saw you two leaving the building together after the launch party, and then you had a private meeting with him in your office after hours." Mitchell crossed his arms. "Isabella, I'm not judging, but if something's going on between you and an employee, it could expose the company to liability. You need to tell me." "Nothing is going on." "Then why is everyone talking about it?" "Because people talked. They always talked." Isabella had spent years building a reputation as untouchable, and now one night was threatening to tear it all down. "Mitchell, I appreciate your concern, but there's nothing to worry about." "You're lying to me. I'm handling it." "Isabella, I said I'm handling it." Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "Drop it." Mitchell stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Fine. But when this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you." He left. Isabella stayed in the conference room, her heart pounding. This was getting out of control. She needed to contain it before the press got wind, before the board started asking questions she couldn't answer. She pulled out her phone and called Ryan. "We need to talk. Now." They met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office, neutral territory where no one would recognize them. Isabella wore sunglasses and a plain jacket, trying to blend in. It felt ridiculous. Ryan was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He pushed one toward her when she sat down. "Decaf," he said. "I Googled it." Despite everything, Isabella almost smiled. "Thanks." "So what's the emergency?" "People are talking. About us." She wrapped her hands around the cup. "Mitchell knows we met after hours. He thinks we're having an affair. Are we?" "Ryan, I'm serious. I mean, technically we did sleep together, and now you're pregnant. People are going to assume things." "I can't have people assuming things. Do you understand what that would do to my reputation? To the company?" Ryan leaned back, studying her. "What do you want me to do? Quit?" "No, I just—" Isabella trailed off. She didn't know what she wanted. Everything felt like it was spinning out of control. "I need to figure out how to manage this." "You can't manage everything, Isabella." "Yes, I can. I always have." "Not this." His voice was gentle but firm. "This is a baby, not a corporate merger. You can't strategy your way through it. Watch me." Ryan shook his head. "You're going to make yourself crazy." "I'm already crazy. I'm 30 years old, pregnant by a man I barely know, and running a billion-dollar company while trying to keep anyone from finding out. Crazy is my baseline right now." "Then maybe you need help." "I don't need help. I need people to mind their own damn business." "Isabella." Ryan reached across the table, then stopped, pulling his hand back. "You can't do this alone. And I'm not just talking about the pregnancy. I mean all of it. You're going to burn out." "I don't burn out." "Everyone burns out eventually." She wanted to argue, but the exhaustion was catching up to her. The sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, the weight of keeping this secret while her body slowly changed in ways she couldn't control. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted quietly. "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out." Ryan's voice was steady, certain in a way that made something in her chest ache. One step at a time. Isabella looked at him across the table. This man who should have been a stranger, who should have stayed a one-night mistake. But he was still here, offering help she didn't know how to accept. "I have another doctor's appointment next week," she heard herself say. "For an ultrasound. If you want to come." Ryan's face softened. "Yeah, I'd like that." The ultrasound room was small and sterile, all white walls and beeping machines. Isabella lay on the exam table in a paper gown, feeling more vulnerable than she had in years. Ryan sat in a chair beside her, hands clasped between his knees, looking like he might throw up. "First time?" the technician asked cheerfully, squirting gel on Isabella's stomach. "Yes," they both said at the same time. The technician smiled. "Nervous?" "Terrified," Ryan muttered. Isabella almost laughed. At least he was honest. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy black and white images that meant nothing to Isabella. The technician moved the wand across her stomach, clicking buttons, zooming in and out. "There we go," she said. "There's your baby." Isabella stared at the screen. In the middle of all that static, there was a tiny shape, barely recognizable as human, but there, moving. "The heartbeat looks good," the technician continued, turning up the volume. A rapid whooshing sound filled the room, fast and strong and impossible. "Oh," Ryan said softly. Isabella couldn't speak. She just stared at that tiny flickering shape on the screen, at the proof that this was real. Not just a test or a doctor's appointment or an abstract problem to solve. A person, growing inside her. "Everything looks healthy," the technician said. "You're measuring right at 10 weeks. Due date is January 15th. January, 6 months away. 6 months to figure out how to be a mother while running a company and keeping the press from eating her alive. Would you like pictures?" "Yes," Ryan said before Isabella could answer. The technician printed out a strip of images and handed them over. Ryan took them, studying the grainy photos like they were the most important documents in the world. "That's our kid," he said, sounding awed. "Our kid." The words hit Isabella harder than she expected. She'd been thinking of this as her problem, her decision, her life turning upside down. But it wasn't just hers. It was theirs. She looked at Ryan, at the way he was smiling at those blurry photos, and something shifted. "Yeah," she said quietly. "That's our kid." They didn't go straight back to the office. Instead, they walked through the city, neither of them quite ready to return to the real world. The ultrasound photos were tucked in Ryan's jacket pocket. "Can I ask you something?" Isabella said after a few blocks. "Sure." "Why aren't you freaking out more about this?" Ryan laughed. "Who says I'm not freaking out? I'm just better at hiding it than you are." "I'm not freaking out. Isabella, you've been wound so tight the last 3 weeks, I'm surprised you haven't snapped." She wanted to argue, but he was right. "Fine, I'm freaking out. Happy?" "Not particularly." Ryan shoved his hands in his pockets. "But at least you're admitting it." They walked in silence for another block. Then Ryan said, "You asked why I'm not freaking out more, honestly? Because I've already done the scared single parent thing. When my wife died, and I was suddenly alone with a 3-year-old, I thought my life was over. I didn't know how I was going to make it work. But I did. And yeah, it was hard as hell, but we figured it out." "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thanks. It was 5 years ago. Cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to..." "Yeah." He cleared his throat. "Anyway, my point is, I know it's possible to make it work even when it seems impossible. And this time I'm not doing it alone. Neither are you." Isabella didn't know what to say. She'd spent so long being self-sufficient, not needing anyone, that the idea of relying on someone else felt foreign. "What's your daughter's name?" she asked. "Lily. She's 8 now, smart as hell, and way too much like me for her own good." "Does she know about the baby?" "Not yet. I wanted to wait until we figured out what we're doing." Ryan glanced at her. "What are we doing, by the way? Long term?" "I have no idea." "That's fair." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Look, I know this isn't how either of us planned our lives. And I know we barely know each other. But I meant what I said. I'm not walking away. So whatever comes next, we're in it together. Okay?" Isabella looked at him standing there on a random sidewalk in the middle of the city. This man who should have been a mistake, but was somehow becoming something else. "Okay," she said. The call came 3 days later. Isabella was in a meeting when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her step out into the hallway. "This is Isabella Kane. Miss Kane, this is Rebecca Marsh from the Financial Chronicle. I'm working on a story and wanted to give you a chance to comment." Isabella's blood went cold. "What story?" We've received information that you're pregnant and that the father is Ryan Cole, one of your employees. Can you confirm? The floor seemed to tilt. Who told you that? The floor seemed to... I can't reveal my sources, but I'm planning to run the story tomorrow unless you'd like to provide a statement. Isabella's mind raced. Someone had leaked it. Someone inside the company. Someone who knew. No comment, she said and hung up. Her hands were shaking. Tomorrow. The story would break tomorrow, and then everything she'd been trying to prevent would come crashing down. She called Ryan. The press knows, she said when he answered. They're running a story tomorrow. Shit. Yeah. Isabella pressed her forehead against the cool wall. I need to get ahead of this. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Do you want me there? No, stay away from the office. The last thing we need is for someone to see us together right now. Isabella, I have to go. She hung up and went straight to Mitchell's office. Call the board, she said. Emergency meeting, 1 hour. Mitchell looked up from his computer. What happened? The press knows about the pregnancy. We're doing damage control. Now. To his credit, Mitchell didn't ask questions. He just started making calls. An hour later, Isabella faced the 7 members of her board across a polished conference table. All men, all older than her, all looking at her with varying degrees of concern and judgment. There's going to be a story in the Financial Chronicle tomorrow, she said, her voice steady. It will report that I'm pregnant. This is true. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Silence. Then Martin Webb, the oldest board member, leaned forward. And the father? Is none of your business. Isabella, if this is an employee, it's handled. The optics alone could tank our stock price, another board member said. Not to mention the potential for a harassment lawsuit. There's no harassment. It was consensual. The words tasted bitter, reducing that night to a legal term. That's not how the public will see it, Mitchell said quietly. You're the CEO. He's mid-level management, the power imbalance. I'm aware of the power imbalance. I'm also aware that I'm a grown woman who made a personal choice. This doesn't affect my ability to run this company. It affects our reputation, Martin said. And yours. People will question your judgment. Then let them question it. I've been questioned my entire career. I'm still here. The meeting devolved into arguments about PR strategy and risk management. Isabella let them talk, her mind already moving ahead to the next crisis, the next fire to put out. When it finally ended, Mitchell stopped her at the door. You should take some time off, he said. Let this blow over. I'm not hiding. Isabella, I'm not suggesting you hide. I'm suggesting you protect yourself. Once this story breaks, you're going to be under a microscope. Every decision you make, every meeting you take, people will be looking for weakness. Then they won't find any. Mitchell sighed. You're going to make this so much harder than it needs to be. Probably, Isabella said, and walked out. The story broke at 6 a.m. Kane Technologies CEO pregnant by employee. Isabella read it on her phone while sitting in her car outside the office, unable to make herself go inside. The article was brutal, speculation about power dynamics, quotes from anonymous sources suggesting Ryan had been trying to sleep his way to a promotion, questions about Isabella's fitness to lead. Her phone started ringing. Investors, reporters, board members. She ignored all of it. At 7, Ryan called. I saw it, she said before he could speak. Isabella, I'm sorry. I know you wanted to keep this quiet. It doesn't matter now. She closed her eyes. They're saying you seduced me for a promotion. That's bullshit. I know, but they don't care about the truth. Then we tell them the truth. We put out a statement. Saying what? That we had a one-night stand and I got pregnant? That makes it worse, not better. Ryan was quiet for a moment. What do you want to do? I don't know. The admission felt like defeat. I'm so tired of not knowing. Then stop trying to figure it all out yourself. His voice was gentle. Come over. Let's talk about this face to face. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. The office will still be there in a few hours. Come over. Isabella looked at the office building, all glass and steel and impossible expectations. Then she put the car in drive. Give me your address, she said. But Ryan's house was small. Not run down, just normal. A two-story colonial in a neighborhood of similar houses with a small yard and a basketball hoop in the driveway. Isabella felt absurdly out of place parking her Tesla on the street. Ryan answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him at the office. "Come in," he said. The inside was lived in. Toys in a basket by the couch, pictures on the walls, Ryan and a little girl with dark curls and his smile. Lily. "She's at school," Ryan said, following her gaze. "I didn't know if you'd want to deal with kid questions today." "Probably not," Isabella admitted. He made coffee, decaf for her, regular for him, and they sat at the kitchen table. It was strange, being in his space, seeing how he lived when he wasn't at work. "Okay," Ryan said. "Let's talk about what we're actually going to do. Not what the press wants or what the board wants. What we want. I want to run my company without everyone thinking I slept my way to the top or abused my position. You didn't do either of those things. Doesn't matter. That's the narrative now." Then we changed the narrative. Ryan leaned forward. "We tell them this wasn't some corporate scandal. It was two people who connected at the wrong time in the wrong way, and now we're figuring out how to make it work. We're honest. We don't hide. Honesty gets you destroyed in my world." Maybe that's because everyone's too busy hiding. He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "I know you're scared. I know this feels like losing control, but you can't control what people think. You can only control what you do next." Isabella stared at their almost touching hands. "What if I'm terrible at this? At being a mother?" "You probably will be, at first. Everyone is." Ryan smiled slightly. "But you're also the most determined person I've ever met. If you decide to do this, you'll figure it out. Even though we barely know each other, then we'll get to know each other. We've got 6 months. He finally closed the distance, his hand warm over hers. "Look, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but my daughter is the best thing that ever happened to me, even though she came out of the worst time in my life. So yeah, the timing sucks. Yeah, this is complicated, but if we're doing this, let's actually do it. Together." Isabella looked at him, really looked at him. Not as the employee she'd made a mistake with, but as the person offering to stand beside her when everything was falling apart. "Okay," she said. Together. Ryan's kitchen smelled like coffee and something sweet. Cinnamon, maybe. Isabella noticed a stack of pancakes on the counter, half-eaten, with a note in crayon that said, "Love you, Daddy," with a lopsided heart. The domesticity of it made her chest tight. "She makes me breakfast sometimes," Ryan said, catching her looking. "Well, I make it and she takes credit, but I let her think she's helping. That's sweet." "Ich Betty. That's Lily." He pulled out his phone, hesitated, then turned it toward her. "This is her." The photo showed a little girl with wild, dark curls, missing one front tooth, grinning at the camera while covered in what looked like paint. She had Ryan's eyes and his stubborn chin. "She's beautiful," Isabella said, and meant it. "She's a handful." Ryan pocketed the phone. Fair warning, when she finds out about the baby, she's going to have about 1,000,000 questions. And she doesn't really have a filter. "I don't know how to talk to kids." "Nobody does at first. You just kind of wing it and hope you don't screw them up too badly." He smiled, but there was worry behind it. "I need to tell her soon, before she hears it somewhere else. The press doesn't know her name, I made sure of that." Isabella had called her lawyer that morning, made it clear that Ryan's daughter was off limits. The one thing she could still control. "Thank you for that." Ryan's voice was quiet. "She's been through enough, losing her mom, then having to deal with me, trying to figure out how to be two parents at once. I don't want her hurt by this." "Neither do I." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, a dog barked. A car door slammed. Normal neighborhood sounds that felt alien to Isabella, who lived 43 floors above the noise of the city. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said. "Sure." "Why did you decide to keep it? The baby, I mean. You could have made this whole thing disappear. No scandal, no mess, just back to business as usual." Isabella traced the rim of her coffee cup. She'd asked herself the same question 100 times. "I don't know. Maybe because my whole life has been about building something that lasts. A company, a reputation, a legacy. And this is, I don't know, different, Real in a way nothing else is. That makes sense. Does it? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. I've spent 30 years learning how to run a business and exactly 0 time learning how to be a mother. What if I'm terrible at it? The bum spoke your swampion. Then you'll figure it out. Same way you figured out everything else. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Look, I'm not going to lie and say it's easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the best thing. Even on the days when I want to tear my hair out because Lily's had a meltdown over the wrong color socks or whatever. The wrong color socks? Last week she refused to go to school because her pink socks were in the wash. And pink is apparently the only color that's acceptable on Wednesdays now. He laughed. Kids are weird. You just roll with it. Isabella tried to imagine herself dealing with sock-related emergencies and came up blank. I live in a penthouse with white carpets. I don't even own anything pink. Yeah, that's going to change. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, sitting in Ryan's cluttered kitchen with crayon drawings stuck to the fridge and a juice box on the counter, Isabella felt something shift. Maybe it was okay that she didn't have it all figured out. Maybe that was the point. Her phone buzzed. Priya, with the 7th message of the morning. The press was camped outside the office. The board wanted another meeting. 3 major clients had called asking for statements. I should go, Isabella said, but she didn't move. You don't have to face them alone. I could come with you. And make it worse, they already think you're some kind of opportunist. If we show up together, it'll just feed the narrative. So what's the alternative? We hide? Pretend we're not in this together? I don't know. Isabella rubbed her temples. The exhaustion was catching up to her, making everything feel impossible. I just need to get through today, then tomorrow, one day at a time. Okay, but Isabella? Ryan waited until she looked at him. You're allowed to ask for help, you know that, right? I don't know how. Then learn, because you're going to need it. She wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she just nodded and stood up. I really do need to go. Ryan walked her to the door. On the porch, he stopped her. Hey, whatever happens today, whatever they say, you didn't do anything wrong. Don't let them make you feel like you did. Isabella looked at him standing there in his doorway, this man who barely knew her but somehow saw past all her armor. Why are you being so nice to me? Because someone has to be. And because whether we planned it or not, we're connected now. Might as well try to make it work. He smiled, small but genuine. Besides, you're not as scary as you think you are. I'm terrifying. Yeah, keep telling yourself that. Despite everything, Isabella almost smiled. Then she got in her car and drove back to the war zone. The office was chaos. Press vans lined the street, cameras pointed at the entrance. Isabella pulled into the underground garage, avoiding them, but she could feel their presence like a weight pressing down. Upstairs, her assistant looked like she'd been through a battle. Ms. Kane, thank goodness, the phones haven't stopped. And the board? I know. Schedule them for this afternoon. And Priya? No more calls, I don't care who it is. Even Mr. Chen? Especially Mr. Chen. Isabella locked herself in her office and tried to work. The quarterly report sat on her desk, numbers that used to make sense now just blurring together. She was 3 months pregnant and running a billion-dollar company in the middle of a media firestorm. Something had to give. By noon, she'd accomplished exactly nothing. Her inbox was flooded with emails from people she barely knew, all offering sympathy or advice or thinly veiled judgment. She deleted them without reading. A knock on her door. Mitchell, letting himself in without waiting for permission. We need to talk about transition planning, he said. I'm not stepping down. I didn't say you were, but you're going to have a baby in 6 months. That means maternity leave, which means we need someone to handle day-to-day operations while you're out. I'll work from home. Isabella, be realistic. You can't run a company with a newborn. Watch me. Mitchell sighed. That particular sound he made when he thought she was being stubborn for no reason. This isn't about proving something. It's about being practical. Let me bring in a deputy CEO, someone who can... No. The word came out harder than she intended. I didn't build this company to hand it over. The second things get complicated. You're not handing it over, you're delegating. There's a difference. Not to me. They stared at each other across her desk. Mitchell had been with her since the beginning, had seen her fight through obstacles that would have crushed most people. But he'd never seen her like this, pregnant and defensive and scared of losing everything she'd worked for. "What are you really afraid of?" he asked quietly. "I'm not afraid." "Bullshit. You've been afraid since the moment you found out. I can see it." Isabella looked away. Outside her window, the city sprawled in every direction, millions of people living their messy, complicated lives. "I'm afraid that if I stop, even for a second, it'll all fall apart. The company, my reputation, everything, and I'll be left with nothing." You'll be left with a child. That's not nothing. It is if I lose everything else in the process. Mitchell sat down, making himself comfortable even though she hadn't invited him to. "You know what your problem is? You think you have to be perfect. That if you show any weakness, any humanity, people will stop respecting you. But that's not how it works. People respect strength, yeah, but they also respect honesty. And right now you're lying to everyone, including yourself." "I'm not lying and..." "You're pretending this isn't terrifying. You're pretending you have it all under control, and everyone can see through it." He leaned forward. "So here's what I think you should do. Go home. Take a few days. Actually think about what you want instead of what you think you're supposed to want. And then come back and we'll figure out a real plan. Not this white-knuckle approach where you're trying to do everything yourself. I can't just leave in the middle of a crisis." "You can. I'll handle the board. You handle yourself." Isabella wanted to argue, but the exhaustion won. "Fine, 3 days, that's it. I'll take what I can get." Mitchell stood up. "And Isabella, for what it's worth, I think you're going to be a good mother. You just need to stop fighting it long enough to let it happen." He left. Isabella sat in her empty office, surrounded by the trappings of success that suddenly felt hollow, and wondered if he was right. She went home. Not to work from her penthouse, but actually home. She turned off her work phone, ignored her laptop, and sat on her couch staring at the city lights as they flickered on. The silence was deafening. Isabella wasn't used to silence. She filled her days with meetings and calls and problems to solve. When she was alone, she worked. She didn't sit, she didn't think. She definitely didn't let herself feel the full weight of what was happening. But now, with nothing to distract her, it all came crashing in. She was going to be a mother. In 6 months, there would be a tiny human who depended on her for everything. Who wouldn't care about quarterly reports, or stock prices, or board meetings? Who would just need her to be present and capable and enough? And Isabella had no idea if she could be those things. Her phone, her personal phone, not the work one, buzzed. "Ryan, how'd it go?" She stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "I took the rest of the week off. Mitchell's idea." "Good. You need a break." "I don't know what to do with myself when I'm not working. Want some company?" Isabella's first instinct was to say no. She didn't need company. She was fine alone. But the thought of spending the next 3 days in her sterile penthouse, rattling around with nothing but her own thoughts, made something in her chest tighten. "Okay," she typed. "Give me an hour. I need to arrange a sitter for Lily." She gave him her address and then spent the next 60 minutes trying not to panic about inviting him into her space. The penthouse was pristine, all glass and steel and expensive furniture that looked good, but wasn't meant to be lived in. It was a showpiece, not a home. When Ryan arrived, he looked around with barely concealed surprise. "Wow, this is cold?" "I was going to say impressive, but yeah, a little cold." He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Hell of a view, though. It's why I bought the place." "Where's the kitchen?" Isabella pointed to the open concept space in the corner, all stainless steel and marble, barely used. Ryan went over and started opening cabinets. "Do you actually cook?" he asked. "I have a meal service." "Of course you do." He pulled out a pan, found some eggs and cheese in her pristine refrigerator. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't takeout or a protein bar?" "I eat." "That's not an answer." Ryan started cracking eggs into a bowl. "Sit down. I'm making you an omelet." "You don't have to..." "Sit down, Isabella." She sat. Watching him move around her kitchen felt surreal. He looked comfortable, like he belonged there, while she felt like a guest in her own home. "So what are you actually going to do with 3 days off?" Ryan asked, whisking eggs. "I have no idea. Sleep, maybe." "When's the last time you slept more than 5 hours?" I don't remember. Yeah, that's a problem. He poured the eggs into the pan, added cheese. The smell made Isabella's stomach growl. You know you're growing a human, right? That takes energy. You can't run on fumes. I'm fine. You're exhausted. I can see it. Ryan plated the omelet and brought it over, sitting down across from her. Eat. Then we're going to talk about actual self-care, not the corporate version where you schedule a massage between meetings. The omelet was good. Better than good, actually. Isabella ate without realizing how hungry she was until the plate was empty. When did you learn to cook? She asked. Had to after Claire died. Lily was 3 and needed to eat something other than chicken nuggets. Ryan leaned back. It was actually one of the few things I could control. Everything else was falling apart, but I could still make her breakfast. So I did, every morning, no matter what. That must have been hard. It was the worst time of my life. Watching someone you love die slowly, knowing there's nothing you can do about it, and then trying to explain to a 3-year-old why mommy isn't coming home. His voice was steady, but Isabella could hear the old pain underneath. But we got through it. You do, somehow, even when you think you can't. Isabella pushed her empty plate away. I don't know how to do this. The domestic thing. I've spent my whole life avoiding it. Why? Because it felt like a trap. Like if I let myself want the house and the family and the normal life, I'd lose focus. And I couldn't afford to lose focus. Not if I wanted to build something that mattered. And now I don't know what I want. I thought I did. But everything's different. She looked around her expensive, empty apartment. This place doesn't even feel like mine anymore. It's just a box I sleep in between work. So change it. It's not that simple. Sure it is. You don't like your life, you change it. You're the CEO of your own company. If you can't make decisions about your own life, who can? Isabella laughed, bitter. You make it sound easy. I didn't say it was easy. I said it was simple. There's a difference. Ryan stood up, started clearing the dishes. Look, I'm not going to tell you how to live, but I will say this. You can't keep going the way you have been. Something's going to break, and I'd rather it be your work schedule than you. I'm not going to break. Everyone breaks eventually. It's just a question of whether you do it on your own terms or wait until you don't have a choice. He washed the dishes in her sink, this man who barely knew her taking care of her in small, practical ways. Isabella watched him and felt something shift in her chest. Not love. They weren't there yet. Might never be there. But something softer than she was used to. Something like trust. Stay, she said before she could second guess it. Ryan turned, surprised. What? Stay tonight. I don't want to be alone. Isabella, not like that. She trailed off, not sure how to explain. Everything's changing so fast and I can't keep up. But when you're here, it feels less overwhelming. So stay. Please. Ryan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, but I need to call Lily. Let her know I won't be home. You can use the guest room. Works for me. He called his daughter, and Isabella heard him through the wall, his voice warm and patient as he explained he was helping a friend and would see her tomorrow. When he came back out, Isabella had pulled out blankets and pillows. I don't really watch TV, she said, but there's a streaming thing on that screen somewhere if you can figure it out. Ryan laughed. You have a 90-inch TV and don't know how to use it? It came with the place. They ended up on the couch, some action movie playing that neither of them really watched. Isabella sat on one end, Ryan on the other, a careful distance between them. But as the night wore on, exhaustion pulled at her and she found herself drifting closer, her head eventually landing on his shoulder. This okay? She mumbled. Yeah, Ryan said quietly. This is okay. Isabella closed her eyes and, for the first time in weeks, let herself relax. She woke up the next morning still on the couch, a blanket tucked around her. Ryan was in the kitchen making coffee, looking rumpled and comfortable in yesterday's clothes. Morning, he said when he saw her awake. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in months. Isabella stretched, feeling the stiffness in her back. What time is it? Almost 9. I let you sleep. 9? She sat up, panicked. I have nothing. You have nothing. It's your day off, remember? Ryan brought her a glass of water. Drink. Then we're going grocery shopping. I don't need groceries. Your fridge contains eggs, cheese, and 17 bottles of fancy water. You need groceries. I have a meal service that you're canceling because you're going to learn to feed yourself like a normal human. He said it gently but firm. Come on, it'll be an adventure. Isabella had never been grocery shopping in her life. She'd gone straight from college to startup life, living on ramen and takeout until she could afford to have food delivered. The idea of walking through a store, picking out produce, felt absurd. But Ryan was already grabbing his keys, so she followed. The supermarket was bright and overwhelming. So many choices, so many people. Ryan grabbed a cart and started down the produce aisle like he knew exactly what he was doing. Okay, basics first. Do you like vegetables? I guess. That's not an answer. He picked up a head of broccoli. This? Yes or no? Sure. Enthusiastic, I love it. He tossed it in the cart. Carrots, peppers, spinach. They made their way through the store, Ryan asking questions and Isabella giving vague answers while he filled the cart with actual food. Other shoppers gave them curious looks, probably recognizing her from the news, wondering what a billionaire was doing in a regular grocery store on a weekday morning. People are staring, Isabella muttered. Let them stare. You're buying broccoli, not committing a crime. Ryan grabbed a carton of eggs. Although your technique for picking avocados needs work. I don't know how to pick avocados. Clearly, here. He showed her how to check for ripeness, his hand guiding hers. The casual touch felt strange and normal at the same time. By the time they got to checkout, the cart was full. The cashier, a teenager with bright pink hair, looked at Isabella with recognition. You're her, the CEO lady who's pregnant. Isabella froze. Ryan stepped in smoothly. Just trying to buy some groceries? You know how it is. Sure, yeah, buddy. The girl started scanning items. My mom says you're super brave for keeping the baby even with all the hate online. Thanks, Isabella managed. People are jerks, but you're still a person, right? You deserve to be happy. The girl finished scanning, completely oblivious to the emotional gut punch she'd just delivered. That'll be $127.58. In the car, Isabella sat in silence while Ryan loaded groceries into the trunk. You okay? He asked when he got in. That girl, what she said. About you deserving to be happy? Yeah. Isabella's throat felt tight. I don't know if I believe that anymore. Maybe I made too many choices focused on work, and now I don't get to have the other stuff, the happy stuff. Ryan reached over and took her hand. That's bullshit. You get to be happy. Everyone does. It's not some reward you have to earn by making all the right choices. It's just life. And yeah, your life is messy right now, but messy doesn't mean you don't deserve good things. How are you so well adjusted? Therapy. Lots of therapy. He squeezed her hand. After Claire died, I was a wreck. Angry at the world, at myself, at her for leaving. Lily's school counselor recommended I talk to someone, and I fought it for months. But eventually I went, and it helped. Maybe you should think about it. I don't need therapy. But everyone needs therapy. Some people just admit it sooner than others. They drove back to her place in comfortable silence. Upstairs, Ryan taught her how to put groceries away, how to organize a fridge so things didn't spoil. Basic life skills Isabella had never needed before. You really don't know how to do any of this? Ryan asked, watching her stare at a bunch of bananas like they were a puzzle. I had other priorities. Yeah, I'm getting that. He took the bananas, hung them on a hook she didn't know she owned. But you're going to need these skills. Kids require constant feeding. You can't just order in every meal. Why not? Because it's not the same. Trust me. Ryan started pulling out ingredients. Come here. I'm teaching you to make spaghetti. I can't cook. You're about to learn. For the next hour, Ryan walked her through the basics of cooking pasta and sauce. He was patient when she screwed up, encouraging when she got it right. By the end, they had 2 plates of slightly overcooked spaghetti that Isabella had made with her own hands. It's not great, she said, poking at the noodles. It's your first try. It's not supposed to be great. Ryan twirled pasta on his fork. But it's food you made yourself. That counts for something. They ate at her dining table, which Isabella realized she'd never actually used before. It was always just her laptop and takeout containers at the kitchen counter. Can I ask you something? Ryan said between bites. Sure. What made you decide to keep it, really? Not the PR answer you gave the board. Isabella set down her fork. Honestly, I think part of me was tired of building things that don't last. Companies get sold, partnerships dissolve, even the work I'm most proud of will probably be obsolete in 10 years. But a kid, that's permanent. That's something I can't take back or walk away from. And maybe I wanted something permanent. That's a lot of pressure to put on a baby who doesn't exist yet. I know, but it's the truth. She looked at him. What about you? What made you decide to be involved? You could have walked away. I wouldn't have blamed you. I told you, I'm not that guy. Ryan pushed his plate aside. But also, I know what it's like to raise a kid alone. It's hard as hell. And I keep thinking about Lily, about how much easier things would have been if I'd had someone to share it with. So if I can be that for our kid, even if it's weird and complicated, I want to try. Our kid, Isabella repeated. I'm still getting used to that. Yeah, me too. They cleaned up together, falling into an easy rhythm that felt practiced even though it wasn't. When Ryan's phone rang, he glanced at the screen and smiled. It's Lily. I should take this. Of course. Isabella listened to him talk to his daughter, his voice warm and patient, even when she was clearly talking a mile a minute on the other end. He laughed at something she said, promised to bring her favorite cereal home, told her he loved her before hanging up. She wants to meet you, he said, tucking the phone away. Isabella's stomach dropped. What? I told her I've been helping a friend. She wants to know who. Ryan looked apologetic. I know it's soon, but she's going to find out eventually, and I'd rather it come from me before she hears it somewhere else. What did you tell her? About the baby? Nothing yet. I wanted to talk to you first. He sat down across from her. Look, we can wait, but the longer we put it off, the harder it's going to be. And Lily's smart. She's going to figure out something's up. I don't know how to talk to an 8-year-old. You just talk. She's a person, just smaller. Ryan smiled. And she's going to love you or hate you. It's kind of 50-50 with kids. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be, but seriously, she's a good kid. A little intense sometimes, but good. He reached across the table. We could do it this weekend. Something low-key. Maybe the park? Isabella felt panic rising in her chest. Meeting Ryan's daughter meant this was real. Not just a crisis to manage, but an actual life change that involved other people and their feelings and complications she couldn't control. But she looked at Ryan's hopeful face and heard herself say, Okay, this weekend. Yeah, let's do it before I lose my nerve. Ryan's smile was bright enough to hurt. Thank you, really, this means a lot. After he left that night, Isabella stood at her window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, an 8-year-old girl was going to meet her this weekend. Somewhere, her employees were speculating about her future. Somewhere, the press was writing stories about her choices in her life and whether she deserved any of this. But up here, 43 floors above it all, Isabella let herself imagine something different. A life that wasn't just work and success and control. A life with Ryan's daughter asking her questions she didn't know how to answer. A life with a baby who wouldn't care about her quarterly reports. A messy, complicated, terrifying life that might actually feel like living. She touched her stomach, still flat, still unchanged from the outside. But inside, everything was different. Okay, she said quietly to the city, to herself, to the tiny cluster of cells that would become her child. Let's figure this out. The park was crowded on Saturday morning, full of families and dog walkers, and people jogging past like they had somewhere important to be. Isabella sat on a bench watching Ryan push Lily on the swings, her hands clasped tight in her lap to keep them from shaking. She was 14 weeks pregnant now, just starting to show if you knew what to look for. The nausea had finally eased, replaced by a constant low-grade anxiety that no amount of planning could fix. Today was the day. Meeting Lily. Making this real in a way it hadn't been before. Ryan had tried to prepare her. Lily was smart, he'd said, perceptive. She'd ask questions and expect real answers. But he'd also promised she was kind, and that counted for something. Still, Isabella felt like she was walking into a negotiation she had no leverage for. She's going to ask why you're here. Ryan had warned that morning. I told her you're a friend who needs some company. Keep it simple. What if she doesn't like me? Then we deal with it. But give her a chance first. Now, watching them together, Isabella felt like an intruder. Ryan and Lily had their own rhythm, their own inside jokes and shared history. There was no room for her in that. But then Ryan called her over, and she didn't have a choice. Lily, this is Isabella. Isabella, this is my daughter Lily. The girl jumped off the swing and looked up at Isabella with Ryan's eyes and an expression that was pure evaluation. She was smaller than Isabella expected, all wild curls and scraped knees and a shirt that said future scientist in glitter letters. Hi, Lily said. Daddy says you work with him? I do. Well, he works for me, technically. Are you his boss? Yes. Cool. Are you nice to him? Because some bosses are mean and make people work too much. Ryan laughed. Lily, that's not... It's okay. Isabella crouched down to Lily's level. I try to be fair. Your dad's really good at his job. I know. He's good at everything. Lily studied her for another moment. Do you like playgrounds? I don't know. I haven't been to one in a long time. That's sad. Come on, I'll show you the best parts. Before Isabella could respond, Lily grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the play structure. Ryan followed, looking amused. For the next hour, Lily gave Isabella a comprehensive tour of the playground equipment, narrating the pros and cons of each piece with the seriousness of a professional reviewer. The swings were good, but got boring fast. The slide was fun, but too short. The climbing structure was the best because it was challenging and you could pretend you were scaling a mountain. Can you climb? Lily asked. I used to, when I was younger. You're not that old. Thanks, I think. Daddy's old and he can still climb. Watch. Ryan obligingly climbed the structure, Lily shouting encouragement while Isabella watched from below. When he reached the top, Lily clapped. See? Age doesn't matter if you try hard enough. That's very philosophical, Isabella said. I don't know what that means, but okay. Lily started climbing herself, nimble as a monkey. Are you going to have a baby? Isabella's heart stopped. What? A baby. Are you having one? Lily reached the top and sat next to her dad. Jenny from school said her mom is having a baby, and she looks like you, kind of round in the middle. Ryan's face went pale. They'd agreed not to tell Lily yet, not until they figured out what they were doing, but apparently Lily had her own timeline. Lily, that's not a polite question to ask, Ryan said carefully. Why not? Jenny's mom doesn't mind when people ask. Every person is different. So is she, or isn't she? Isabella looked up at them, this little girl who deserved honesty and this man who was desperately trying to protect everyone. She could lie, make up an excuse. But Lily would find out eventually, and starting with a lie felt wrong. Yes, Isabella said. I am. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Is it Daddy's baby? Lily, Ryan started. It's okay. Isabella took a breath. Yes, it's your dad's baby, which means it's going to be your baby brother or sister. Lily processed this information with the intense focus she'd applied to rating playground equipment. Then she scrambled down the structure so fast Ryan yelped, Lily, careful! But she was already in front of Isabella, looking up with an expression that was hard to read. So you're going to be like my stepmom or something? I don't know yet. Your dad and I are still figuring things out. But the baby's real? It's really happening? Yes. Okay. Lily nodded, decisive. I have questions. Of course you do, Ryan said, climbing down more carefully. Maybe we should sit down for this. They found a bench. Lily sat between them, swinging her legs and organizing her thoughts. First question, when's the baby coming? January, Isabella said. That's forever. It'll go faster than you think. Second question, is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet. Why not? Can't the doctor tell? They can, but we decided not to find out. We want it to be a surprise. Lily considered this. Okay. Third question, are you and Daddy boyfriend-girlfriend? Ryan cleared his throat. That's complicated. How is it complicated? Either you are or you aren't. We're friends who are having a baby together, Isabella said. The rest we're still working out. That's weird. Yeah, it is. Fourth question. If the baby's born in January, can we have a birthday party with a winter theme? Like snow and penguins and stuff? Despite everything, Isabella smiled. Sure, we can do that. Cool. Fifth question. How many questions do you have? Ryan asked. A lot. I'm very curious. Lily swung her legs harder. Fifth question. Do I have to share my room? No, Isabella said quickly. The baby will have their own room. Where? At your house or our house? Ryan and Isabella exchanged a look. They hadn't discussed living arrangements yet, had been avoiding it because it felt too big to tackle. We're still figuring that out too, Ryan said. You guys don't have a lot figured out, huh? Not really. That's okay. You can figure it out as you go. That's what Daddy always says when I'm worried about stuff. Ryan pulled his daughter close. When did you get so smart? I was always smart. You just noticed more now. They stayed at the park for another hour. Lily showed Isabella how to properly go down a slide. Feet first, arms up, making whooshing sounds optional but recommended, and explained the complex social dynamics of third grade. By the time they left, Isabella's nerves had settled into something almost like comfort. Walking back to the parking lot, Lily slipped her hand into Isabella's. I think it's cool, she said. Having a baby brother or sister. I was always the only kid, and it gets lonely sometimes. Were you lonely? Sometimes. After Mom died, it was just me and Daddy, and he's great, but it's not the same as having someone my age, you know? Lily looked up at her. So I'm glad there's going to be a baby. Even if it's weird how it happened. It's definitely weird. But good weird, not bad weird. Thanks, Lily. You're welcome. And just so you know, I think you're okay. For a grown-up. High praise from an 8-year-old, Isabella would take it. Ryan dropped them off at Isabella's penthouse. Both of them now, because Lily wanted to see where the baby would live. Isabella tried to see the space through a child's eyes as they walked in. Still too white, too pristine, too much glass and not enough softness. Wow, Lily breathed. This is like a castle. It's just an apartment. A fancy apartment. Do you have a pool? On the roof. For the whole building. Can I see? Isabella looked at Ryan, who shrugged. Sure, but you have to promise to be careful. They took the elevator up. The rooftop pool was empty this early, the water still and blue under the morning sun. Lily ran to the edge, carefully, to her credit, and looked out at the city spreading below. You can see everything from up here. That's kind of the point, Isabella said. It must be nice, being this high up. Lily turned around. Is the baby going to live here? For a while, until we figure out something better. What's wrong with here? It's not very kid-friendly. Everything's white and breakable. So change it. That's what Daddy did with our house after Mom died. It was all her stuff, and it made him sad, so we changed it. Now it's our stuff, and it's better. Isabella looked at this little girl, dispensing wisdom like it was simple. You're right. We should change it. Can I help? I'm good at decorating. I believe you. But we should probably ask your dad first. Or ours. Much short. They went back downstairs. Ryan had ordered pizza. Isabella's fridge was still embarrassingly empty, despite his grocery store lesson. And they ate at the dining table, while Lily chattered about school and friends and the injustice of having to learn cursive when everyone just typed on computers anyway. It's still important, Ryan said. You need to be able to read cursive even if you don't write it. Why? Because old documents are in cursive, historical stuff. I'll just use a translator app. That's not the point. Can we paint the baby's room? Lily interrupted. I was thinking yellow, or maybe green. Not pink or blue because we don't know if it's a boy or girl, and also those colors are boring. We're not painting anything yet, Ryan said. The baby's not coming for months. So, we should be prepared. Isabella watched them debate room colors and felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. This was what family looked like. Not perfect or planned, just people figuring it out together. Her phone buzzed. Mitchell, asking about a contract issue that needed her signature. Isabella ignored it. For the first time in her career, work could wait. After lunch, Lily wanted to watch a movie. They ended up on the couch. Some animated thing about talking animals that Lily had seen a dozen times but still laughed at like it was new. Isabella sat on one end, Ryan on the other. Lily sprawled between them with a bowl of popcorn. Halfway through, Lily shifted, putting her head on Isabella's lap without thinking about it. Isabella froze, unsure what to do. Ryan caught her eye and nodded slightly. Just let it happen. So Isabella did. She put her hand on Lily's hair, felt the soft curls under her fingers, and let herself be part of this moment. When the movie ended, Lily was asleep. Ryan carried her to Isabella's guest room, tucking her in with practiced ease. "She likes you," he said when he came back out. "She's a good kid." "Yeah, she is. And she deserves to know what's happening. I'm glad you told her." "I didn't plan to. It just came out." Sometimes that's better. Less time to overthink it. Ryan sat beside her on the couch. "So what now?" "What do you mean?" "Lily knows, the board knows, the press knows. At some point, we have to figure out what we're actually doing here. Not just for the baby, but for us." Isabella had been avoiding this conversation, but he was right. They couldn't keep drifting. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted. "I've never done this before. The relationship thing. I'm better at mergers than dating." "Good thing this isn't dating then. We're way past that." "Right, we skipped straight to baby and blended family." "Very efficient of us." Ryan took her hand. "Look, I'm not expecting you to have all the answers, but we need to start talking about the practical stuff. Where we're going to live, how we're going to split time with the baby, what this looks like long term. I hate practical stuff." "I know, but it's important." Isabella looked around her penthouse, trying to imagine it filled with baby gear and toys and the chaos of actual life. This place isn't right for raising a kid, so we find somewhere else. Together. Together. Yeah, I mean, if you want. I'm not assuming I want. The words came out more certain than she felt. I want to try. Doing this together. Not just co-parenting from separate houses, but actually building something. Ryan's smile was bright enough to hurt. "Yeah? Yeah, I'm terrified and I'll probably screw it up, but yeah, we'll screw it up together. That's the deal." They sat there on this couch, holding hands like teenagers, while Lily slept in the next room and the baby grew in Isabella's belly. It wasn't romantic or dramatic. It was just two people choosing to try. And for Isabella, who'd spent her life avoiding exactly this kind of vulnerability, it felt revolutionary. The next few weeks were consumed with logistics. They started house hunting, looking for something big enough for all of them, but not so big it felt empty. Ryan wanted a yard. Isabella wanted a home office. Lily insisted on a room with good light for reading. They saw a dozen places that were almost right, but not quite. Too far from Lily's school, too close to the highway. Wrong neighborhood, wrong layout, wrong feeling when they walked through the door. Isabella was ready to give up when their realtor showed them a house in a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown. It was older, needed work, but it had character. High ceilings, built-in bookshelves, a backyard with actual trees. "What do you think?" the realtor asked. Isabella walked through the empty rooms, imagining them filled. A nursery upstairs with morning light. Lily's room down the hall, big enough for all her books and science projects. A kitchen where Ryan could cook while she worked at the table. A life that felt real instead of curated. "I think it's perfect," she said. Ryan grinned. "Yeah, I think so too." They made an offer that day. It was accepted within 24 hours, and suddenly Isabella owned a house. A real house, not a showpiece apartment. A place meant for living. The inspection turned up issues: old wiring, a roof that needed replacing, plumbing that hadn't been updated since the 80s. Isabella's lawyer advised her to negotiate or walk away. "Or we could just fix it," Ryan said when she told him. "It's going to cost a fortune." "You have a fortune, and it's worth it. This place could be great." So they bought the house, issues and all, and started planning renovations. Ryan knew contractors, people who could work fast without cutting corners. Isabella wrote checks and tried not to micromanage, which lasted about 3 days before she was reading electrical code manuals and questioning every decision. "You have to let them do their job," Ryan said, finding her on a ladder checking the ceiling fan installation. "I'm just making sure it's safe. They've been doing this for 20 years. They know what they're doing." "But, Isabella, down. Now. She climbed down, grumbling. I don't like not being in control. I've noticed, but you're 6 months pregnant and standing on ladders is not on the approved activities list. The doctor said I could maintain normal activities. Normal activities don't include amateur electrical inspections. He took her hand. Come on, let's go look at paint samples for the nursery. That's a pregnant person's safe activity. They ended up at a hardware store, surrounded by approximately 3,000 shades of yellow and green. Lily had been adamant about avoiding pink and blue, which left them with options ranging from Sunshine Meadow to Sage Whisper to Buttercream Dream. These names are ridiculous, Isabella said, holding up a card labeled Happy Caterpillar. That's actually kind of cute. It's a color, not a personality trait. Ryan laughed. You're very grumpy today. I'm pregnant and tired and my back hurts and I can't see my feet anymore. Fair enough. He pulled her close, careful of her belly. But we're making progress. The house is coming together. The baby's healthy. We're figuring it out. Are we? Because it still feels like chaos. It's organized chaos. That's different. Isabella wanted to argue, but the baby kicked hard like punctuation. She put Ryan's hand on her stomach so he could feel it. That's strong, he said, his face softening. Tell me about it. I think she's training for soccer. Or he is. I'm calling it she until we know otherwise. Lily's convinced and I don't have the energy to argue. They settled on a soft green called Morning Dew that Lily approved of after serious consideration. The nursery would be painted, they'd get furniture that wasn't white, and slowly the house would become theirs. Work was a different kind of chaos. Isabella had started taking meetings from home, doing strategy calls from her couch while wearing yoga pants and hoping no one noticed. Mitchell ran the day-to-day operations with increasing confidence, which should have made Isabella feel obsolete but mostly just felt like relief. She could breathe. For the first time in years, she could actually breathe. The press coverage had died down to occasional speculation pieces about when she'd return to the office. The board had stopped asking questions after Mitchell proved he could handle the job. The company's stock was stable, even growing. Everything Isabella had been terrified of losing was fine, better than fine, but she still had moments of panic. Late at night, lying awake while Ryan slept beside her, Isabella would spiral into worst-case scenarios. What if she never got her edge back? What if stepping away meant she could never step back in? What if all those years of building her career were wasted because she'd chosen family instead? Ryan always seemed to know when she was spiraling. He'd wake up, pull her close, and talk her down from the ledge. You're not giving up your career, so he'd say. You're just adjusting it. There's a difference. What if I'm not as good when I go back? What if you're better? You'll have perspective you didn't have before. Or I'll be rusty, and everyone will know I can't compete anymore. Isabella, you built $1 billion company from nothing. You're not going to suddenly forget how to do that because you took time off to have a baby. People will think I'm weak. People will think whatever they want. You can't control that. He'd put his hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. But you can control this. Being present for your family. That's not weak. That's brave. Isabella wanted to believe him. Some days she did. Other days, the fear won. She was 7 months along when the contraction started. Not labor. Too early for that. But Braxton Hicks, her body rehearsing for the main event. They were uncomfortable and irregular, coming at random times and catching her off guard. The first time it happened, she was in a meeting with Mitchell via video call. She gasped, pressing her hand to her stomach, and Mitchell's face went pale. What's wrong? Are you okay? Fine, just a contraction, not real labor. Are you sure? Should I call someone? Mitchell, I'm fine. Let's just finish this. But he refused to continue until she called her doctor and confirmed it was normal. Isabella did, grudgingly, and Dr. Martinez assured her these false contractions were expected. They're your body's way of preparing, she explained. But call me if they become regular or painful. And Isabella, maybe consider slowing down even more. You're still working too hard. I'm barely working at all. For you, barely working is still more than most people do full-time. Your body needs rest. Isabella promised to rest, then immediately scheduled another meeting. Old habits died hard. Ryan found her at the dining table that night, surrounded by reports and looking exhausted. What are you doing? Reviewing Q3 projections. Why? Because Mitchell asked for my input. Did he ask, or did you volunteer? Isabella didn't answer. Ryan closed her laptop gently. You're supposed to be resting. I am resting. I'm sitting down. That's not what the doctor meant, and you know it. He sat beside her. What's really going on? Why are you pushing yourself like this? Because if I stop, I'll think too much. About all the things that could go wrong. About whether I'm making a huge mistake giving up control of my company. About what happens if the baby... Her voice cracked. If something goes wrong again. Isabella, the baby's fine. Dr. Martinez said so at your last appointment. But what if she's wrong? What if my body fails again and the baby comes too early, or something happens and I can't... Ryan pulled her into his arms, letting her cry against his shoulder. You can't think like that. You'll drive yourself crazy. I'm already crazy. Then let's be crazy together. He pulled back, wiping tears from her face. Look, I can't promise nothing will go wrong. Nobody can. But I can promise you're not doing this alone. Whatever happens, we'll handle it. Together. You keep saying that because it's true and because you need to hear it. He put his hand on her belly. This baby is going to be fine. You're going to be fine. We're all going to figure this out. Isabella wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, so she nodded and let him lead her to bed, where she fell asleep with his arm around her and the baby moving between them. The house was finished in November, just in time for them to move in before the weather turned. Isabella stood in the empty living room, looking at the space they'd created together, and felt something shift. This was home. Not the penthouse with its perfect views and sterile surfaces. This messy, imperfect house with the creaky floorboards and the backyard that needed landscaping. Lily ran through, claiming her room with its good reading light and built-in bookshelf. Ryan carried in boxes, making strategic decisions about what went where. And Isabella stood in the middle of it all, 7 months pregnant and terrified and happier than she'd ever been. You okay? Ryan asked, finding her still standing there. Yeah, this is real now. All of it. It's been real for a while. I know, but now it feels real. She looked around at the house they'd bought together, the life they were building. What if I mess this up? You probably will, so will I. So will Lily. That's how families work. He put his arms around her from behind, careful of her belly. But we'll mess it up together and figure it out as we go. That's the deal. Not a very reassuring deal. It's honest, though, and that counts for something. They spent the next week unpacking and organizing, turning empty rooms into spaces that felt lived in. The nursery came together slowly. The green walls Lily had approved, a crib Ryan assembled with only minor swearing, a rocking chair Isabella found herself sitting in even though the baby wasn't here yet. Everything was ready. The house, the nursery, their weird little blended family. Now they just had to wait for the baby to arrive and hope they didn't screw it all up too badly. Isabella was 8 months pregnant when her water broke in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks before her due date and in the middle of organizing the linen closet because apparently nesting instincts were real and impossible to ignore. 1 minute she was folding towels. The next, she was standing in a puddle, staring at Ryan with something between panic and disbelief. Is that... he started. Yeah, I think my water just broke. Okay. Ryan went into crisis mode, grabbing the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, calling Dr. Martinez, trying to stay calm while clearly freaking out. Are you having contractions? Not yet, just another gush of fluid. Okay, this is happening. We're having a baby. I'm aware. They made it to the hospital with time to spare. Dr. Martinez checked her and confirmed the baby was coming, ready or not. You're only 2 centimeters dilated, so it might be a while, she said. Get comfortable. This could take all night. It did. Hours of contractions that got progressively worse, Isabella gripping Ryan's hand hard enough to hurt, while he talked her through breathing exercises and offered ice chips and generally tried to be helpful despite having no idea what he was doing. Lily called around 9, wanting to know if the baby was here yet. Not yet, sweetheart, Ryan said, stepping into the hallway. But soon. Tell Isabella I'm rooting for her. And tell the baby to hurry up because I want to meet them. I'll pass that along. Back in the room, Isabella was breathing through another contraction, her face pale and sweaty. When it passed, she looked at Ryan with exhausted eyes. I can't do this. Yes, you can. No, seriously, I can't. It hurts too much and I'm tired, and this was a terrible idea. Little late to back out now. Don't be logical. I'm in labor. I'm allowed to be irrational. Ryan laughed despite himself. Fair enough, but you're doing great. Really. I'm really not. I'm falling apart. No, you're being human. There's a difference. He brushed hair back from her face. And for the record, you're the strongest person I know. If anyone can do this, it's you. Another contraction hit, and Isabella couldn't respond. She just held on and tried to remember how to breathe. It went on for hours. The pain building, the exhaustion setting in, the terrifying realization that there was no going back, no way out except through. At some point, Isabella lost track of time. Dr. Martinez checked her again and smiled. You're at 10 centimeters. It's time to push. And then it was chaos. Nurses moving into position, instructions being shouted, Ryan holding her hand and counting through contractions. Isabella pushed with everything she had, feeling her body tear itself apart to bring this baby into the world. I can see the head, Dr. Martinez said. One more big push. Isabella pushed, screaming through it. Isabella. And suddenly the pressure released. A moment of silence and then a cry, small and furious and perfect. It's a girl, Dr. Martinez said, lifting the baby. A girl. Isabella had been right. They had a daughter. They placed her on Isabella's chest, this tiny red thing covered in fluid and crying at the indignity of being born. She was perfect, impossibly, heartbreakingly perfect. Hi, baby, Isabella whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, sweetheart. We've been waiting for you. Bam. The baby stopped crying, her unfocused eyes trying to find the source of Isabella's voice. Ryan was crying too, his hand on the baby's head, looking at them both like they were miracles. We did it, he said. We did it, Isabella agreed. They named her Hope Elizabeth Cole Kane because after everything they'd been through, Hope felt like the right name. And Elizabeth after Ryan's late wife, because she would have been part of this too if she'd lived. Lily met her sister the next day, approaching the hospital bassinet with wide eyes and careful hands. She's so small, Lily breathed. She is, Isabella said from the bed. You were even smaller. Really? Really, your dad showed me pictures. Lily looked at Hope for a long moment, then back at Isabella. Can I hold her? Of course, sit in the chair and we'll put her in your arms. Ryan helped Lily settle, then carefully placed Hope in her big sister's arms. Lily held her like she was made of glass, supporting her head the way Ryan had taught her. Hi, Hope, Lily said softly. I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything I know, but first you have to grow bigger because right now you're basically a potato with a face. Despite the exhaustion, Isabella laughed. Ryan was taking pictures, capturing this moment for when Hope was older and could appreciate having a sister who called her a potato on their first meeting. They went home 3 days later, Hope tiny in her car seat, Lily sitting next to her in the back talking nonstop about all the things they were going to do together. Ryan drove carefully, like the car was carrying something precious. Which it was. At the house, Isabella stood in the living room holding her daughter and looking at the family she'd somehow acquired. Ryan unpacking baby supplies, Lily organizing Hope's stuffed animals. Everything messy and imperfect and real. This was her life now. Not corner offices and board meetings, but midnight feedings and diaper changes and the terrifying responsibility of keeping another human alive. And somehow, despite all her fears and doubts and certainty that she'd messed this up, Isabella thought she might actually be okay with that. The headache started during a conference call with the Tokyo office. Isabella was 28 weeks pregnant now, and her body had finally decided to make its displeasure known. The nausea had passed weeks ago, replaced by constant exhaustion and a growing list of symptoms her doctor kept assuring her were normal. But this headache was different, sharp, insistent, like someone was driving a nail through her skull. Ms. Kane? The voice on the speakerphone sounded distant. Did you want to review the Q4 projections? Isabella pressed her fingers to her temples. The numbers on the screen blurred. Send them to Mitchell. We'll discuss tomorrow. She ended the call and sat in the quiet of her office. Outside, the city stretched in every direction, but it felt like it was tilting, the edges going soft and wrong. Her phone buzzed. Ryan, asking if she wanted to get dinner. She typed back a quick yes, then put her head down on her desk. That's how Priya found her 10 minutes later. Ms. Kane? Her assistant's voice was sharp with concern. Are you all right? Fine, just tired. You look pale. Should I call someone? No, I'm fine. Isabella lifted her head. The room spun. Actually, can you get me some water? Priya came back with water and a concerned expression that Isabella wanted to ignore. But when she stood up to take the glass, her legs went weak. She grabbed the desk to steady herself. That's it. I'm calling your doctor. Priya, with respect, you're clearly not fine. And if something happens to you because I didn't make that call, I'll never forgive myself. Isabella wanted to argue, but the headache was getting worse. Fine, call. 20 minutes later, she was on the phone with Dr. Martinez, trying to downplay her symptoms while Priya hovered nearby looking skeptical. Headache, blurred vision, dizziness. Doctor, Martinez repeated. Isabella, I need you to go to the hospital, now. It's probably just stress. It could be preeclampsia, which means your blood pressure is dangerously high and both you and the baby are at risk. So I need you to stop arguing and get to the ER. The word risk cut through Isabella's denial. Okay, I'll go. I'm sending your information ahead. They'll be expecting you. Isabella hung up and looked at Priya. Call Ryan. Tell him to meet me at Mercy General. I'll drive you. No, call a car and don't tell anyone else. Not yet. Ms. Kane, please, Priya, just do this for me. The car ride to the hospital felt endless. Isabella sat in the back, pressing a hand to her stomach where the baby had been kicking all day. Now, everything was still, too still. Please be okay, she whispered. Please. Ryan was already in the ER when she arrived, pacing near the check-in desk. When he saw her, relief flooded his face. What happened? Priya just said you needed to get to the hospital. Dr. Martinez thinks it might be preeclampsia. Isabella's voice came out smaller than she intended. My blood pressure's too high. Okay. Ryan took her hand. They're going to fix it. Come on. The nurses got her into a room quickly, hooking her up to monitors that beeped and whirred. Her blood pressure reading made the nurse's eyebrows rise. 160 over 110. Doctor, Martinez is on her way. The nurse adjusted the bed. Try to stay calm. I know that's easier said than done. Ryan pulled a chair close and didn't let go of her hand. It's going to be okay. You don't know that. You're right. But I'm saying it anyway because the alternative is thinking about all the things that could go wrong, and that doesn't help anybody. Dr. Martinez arrived 30 minutes later, moving with efficient calm that somehow made everything worse. She checked Isabella's vitals, examined the monitor readings, asked questions in a steady voice that revealed nothing. All right, she said finally. It's preeclampsia. Your blood pressure is too high and there's protein in your urine. We need to monitor you closely. What does that mean? Ryan asked. It means Isabella needs to be on bed rest. No work, no stress. Complete rest until we can get this under control. For how long? Until the baby's born, which, if the preeclampsia gets worse, might be sooner than we planned. Isabella felt the room tilt again. How soon? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right now, I'm admitting you for observation. We'll see how you respond to medication over the next 48 hours. I can't stay here for 2 days. I have meetings, Isabella. Dr. Martinez's voice was gentle but firm. If we don't get this under control, you could have a seizure or a stroke, or the baby could be in distress. So yes, you're staying. And after you're discharged, you're going home to rest. Not the office. Home. The reality of it hit like a punch. Isabella had never stopped working. Even when she was sick, even when she was exhausted, she showed up. The company needed her. She couldn't just disappear for 3 months. I'll cancel your meetings, Ryan said quietly. And I'll call Mitchell, let him know what's happening. No! Isabella, you heard her. This is serious. His hand tightened on hers. The company will survive. We need to make sure you do. Dr. Martinez left them alone. The monitors beeped steadily, tracking 2 heartbeats that suddenly felt fragile. I'm scared, Isabella admitted. Me too. Ryan brushed hair back from her face. But we're going to get through this, both of you. They kept her in the hospital for 3 days. The medication brought her blood pressure down, but not enough. Dr. Martinez was clear. Bed rest wasn't a suggestion, it was a requirement. Complete rest. No work, no stress. Just waiting and hoping the baby could stay inside long enough to be safe. Isabella hated every second of it. Ryan stayed with her as much as he could, juggling visits between work and taking care of Lily. On the second day, he brought his daughter to visit, despite Isabella's protests. "She wanted to see you," Ryan said as Lily bounded into the hospital room with a handful of drawings. "I made you pictures," Lily announced, climbing onto the chair beside the bed. "Daddy said you're sick and need to rest, so I made you things to look at so you won't be bored." The drawings were typical 8-year-old art, stick figures and wonky houses and flowers that looked like explosions of color. But Lily narrated each one with complete seriousness. "This is you and Daddy and me and the baby. We're at the park. And this one is the baby's room. I think it should be yellow because that's happy. And this one is—" "Lily, breathe," Ryan said, laughing. "I'm breathing. I'm just talking while I do it." She looked at Isabella. "Are you going to be okay?" The question, delivered with a child's directness, cut through all the medical jargon and adult reassurances. "I don't know yet." "Oh." Lily processed this. "Well, I hope you are, because Daddy really likes you and I don't want him to be sad again." "Lily," Ryan started, but Isabella shook her head. "Thank you for the drawings. They're beautiful." "You're welcome. Can I touch your belly? Daddy said the baby kicks sometimes." Isabella glanced at Ryan, who nodded. "Sure." Lily placed her small hand on Isabella's stomach, eyes wide with concentration. After a moment, the baby kicked and Lily gasped. "I felt it! The baby said hi to me!" "That's one way to interpret it," Ryan said. They stayed for another hour, Lily chattering about school and friends and her new favorite cartoon, while Ryan tried to rein her in, and Isabella found herself laughing despite everything. When they finally left, the room felt emptier than before. Mitchell came that evening, looking uncomfortable in a hospital setting. He sat in the visitor's chair and didn't quite meet her eyes. "The board's asking questions," he said, "about succession planning, contingencies. Tell them I'll be back." "Isabella, you almost died. They need more than reassurances." "I didn't almost die. My blood pressure was high. High enough that they're keeping you here for 3 days and then confining you to bed rest for months." Mitchell finally looked at her. "You need to appoint an interim CEO, someone who can run things while you're out." "No. It's not a request. The board's meeting on Friday. If you don't give them a name, they'll choose someone themselves." Isabella felt panic rising in her chest. "They can't do that." "They can, and they will. Because right now, you're a liability. And I'm sorry to put it that bluntly, but it's the truth." "Who are they considering?" "Morrison from sales, Chen from operations, maybe Richards from tech." All men. All people who'd been gunning for her position since she'd taken it. All people who would use this as an opportunity to take her company away from her. "What about you?" Isabella asked. Mitchell blinked. "What?" "Interim CEO. You know the company as well as I do. The board trusts you, and you won't try to make it permanent." "Isabella, I'm CFO. I don't want your job." "Exactly, which makes you perfect." She struggled to sit up straighter. "Please, Mitchell, I need someone I can trust, someone who'll keep things running until I can come back." Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. "You're really asking me to do this?" "Yes." "All right. But on one condition, you actually rest. No checking emails every 5 minutes. No conference calls from your bed. You focus on getting better and let me handle the company." "Mitchell, those are the terms. Take them or I'll let the board appoint Morrison and you can watch him run Kane Technologies into the ground." Isabella wanted to argue, but the exhaustion was overwhelming. And maybe Mitchell was right. Maybe she needed to let go, just for a little while. "Fine, but I want weekly updates. Daily updates in writing, no calls. That's the compromise." "Deal." Mitchell stood up, looking relieved. "Get some rest, Isabella. Real rest. The company will be there when you get back." After he left, Isabella lay in the hospital bed listening to the monitor's beep. Somewhere in the building, other people were fighting their own battles. Somewhere outside, her company was moving forward without her, and inside her, a baby was growing despite the odds. She put her hand on her stomach and felt a small kick in response. "Just hold on a little longer," she whispered. "We're not ready yet." They released her on the 4th day with strict instructions and a blood pressure cuff she was supposed to use twice daily. Ryan picked her up, drove her home to her penthouse, and proceeded to move in without asking. "What are you doing?" Isabella asked as he carried a duffel bag through her door. "Staying. Doctor's orders said you need someone to monitor you. That's me." "Ryan, you have a daughter." "Who's staying with my sister for the next few weeks. I already arranged it." He set the bag down. "You're on bed rest. That means someone needs to make sure you eat, take your meds, and don't sneak your laptop out to work. I'm that someone." "I don't need a babysitter." "Too bad. You've got one anyway." Ryan walked to her bedroom, looked around at the pristine white everything. "We're going to need to make this more comfortable. You're going to be spending a lot of time here." Over the next few days, Ryan transformed her sterile bedroom into something livable. He brought in extra pillows, a small TV, books, snacks. He set up a schedule for her medications and monitored her blood pressure religiously. When she tried to check her work email, he literally took her phone away. "Give it back," Isabella demanded. "No. You're supposed to be resting." "I am resting. I'm just also checking." "Nope, not happening." Ryan pocketed her phone. "Mitchell's handling it. Let him handle it." "I hate this." "I know, but the alternative is worse." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Isabella, you almost had a seizure. Do you understand that? If we don't get your blood pressure under control, you could die. Or the baby could die. So yeah, you hate being stuck in bed. But it's temporary. Death is permanent." The bluntness of it made her flinch. "You don't have to be so dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being realistic. And I need you to be realistic too." Isabella looked away. The view from her bedroom window showed the same city she'd been conquering for years, but from here it felt distant, unreachable. "I don't know how to do nothing," she said quietly. "Then learn, because that's what the next 2 months looked like." It was hell. Isabella had never been good at sitting still, and enforced bed rest pushed every one of her buttons. She was bored, frustrated, terrified. The company was moving on without her. The press had picked up the story of her hospitalization, spinning it into narratives about female CEOs and pregnancy and whether women could really have it all. Ryan read her some of the articles one afternoon, his voice carefully neutral. "Isabella Kane's health crisis raises questions about leadership during pregnancy," he read. "Sources inside Kane Technologies suggest the board is considering permanent replacement options." "Let me see that." "No, because you'll just get worked up and your blood pressure will spike." Ryan folded the tablet. "They're vultures. Ignore them." "Easy for you to say. It's not your reputation being torn apart." "No, it's just my integrity being questioned in every article that mentions me by name." Ryan's voice was calm, but she could hear the edge underneath. "I've been called everything from opportunist to gold digger to the guy who knocked up his boss for a promotion. Trust me, I know what it's like to have strangers dissect your life." Isabella felt a stab of guilt. She'd been so focused on her own crisis, she hadn't thought about what this was doing to him. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For dragging you into this. If we just kept our distance that night, then we wouldn't be here. But we are. And I don't regret it." Ryan sat beside her. "Yeah, the timing sucks. Yeah, it's complicated. But that baby in there? That's real. And worth fighting for, so stop apologizing for things neither of us can change." The baby kicked, hard, like punctuation. Isabella winced. "She's got strong opinions," Ryan said, smiling. "How do you know it's a she?" "I don't, but Lily's convinced she's getting a sister, so I'm going with that until we find out otherwise." They decided not to learn the sex, wanting at least one surprise in the middle of all this chaos. But Isabella found herself wondering anyway. A daughter, what would that be like? The days blurred together. Ryan worked from her dining table, taking calls and managing projects while keeping an eye on her. Mitchell sent daily updates that Isabella read obsessively until Ryan started hiding her tablet. Lily visited on weekends, bringing more drawings and endless questions about the baby. "When's it going to be born?" Lily asked one Saturday afternoon, sprawled across the foot of Isabella's bed. January, if everything goes okay. That's forever away. 2 months. See? Forever. Lily rolled onto her back. Is it scary? Being pregnant? Yes. Oh. Lily thought about this. My mom was scared when she was pregnant with me. Daddy told me once, but she said I was worth it. Isabella looked at this little girl who'd lost her mother too young, who was somehow handling the chaos of this situation better than most adults. Your mom was right. I know. I'm pretty great. Lily grinned, then grew serious. Are you going to be okay? Like, not die or anything? Ryan, who'd been making lunch in the kitchen, appeared in the doorway. Lily, it's okay, Isabella said. I don't know, Lily. The doctors are doing everything they can, but I'm scared too. Well, if you die, I'll be really sad. So you should try not to. I'll do my best. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer and went back to her coloring. Ryan shot Isabella a look that was half grateful, half concerned. Later, after Lily had gone home with his sister, Ryan sat on the edge of Isabella's bed. Thank you, he said, for being honest with her. She needs that. She's a good kid. Yeah, she is. And she really likes you, in case you couldn't tell. The feeling's mutual. Isabella shifted, trying to get comfortable. Her back ached constantly now. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever regret it, that night, everything that came after? Ryan was quiet for a moment. No. I mean, I wish the circumstances were different. I wish you weren't sick and we weren't dealing with all this external pressure. But the baby? Us figuring this out? No. I don't regret that. Even though it turned your life upside down, my life was already upside down. This just gave it a different direction. He took her hand. What about you? Do you regret it? Isabella thought about her answer. A month ago, she might have said yes. But now, lying in bed with a baby moving inside her, and this man who'd somehow become essential sitting beside her, the answer was different. No, I don't regret it. The weeks crawled by. Isabella's blood pressure stayed stubbornly high despite the medication. Dr. Martinez came for weekly home visits, each one ending with the same instructions: rest, monitor, hope for the best. If we can get you to 34 weeks, the baby's chances are much better, Dr. Martinez said during one visit. But if your condition worsens, we might have to deliver early. How early? We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. Right now, focus on staying calm and following the protocol. Isabella was 32 weeks when the headaches came back. She woke up at 3 in the morning with pain stabbing through her skull. Ryan was asleep on the couch in her room. He'd been sleeping there for weeks, refusing to take the guest room in case she needed something at night. Ryan, she managed. He was awake instantly. What's wrong? Headache, bad one. Ryan turned on the light and checked her blood pressure. The reading made him swear. 170 over 115. We're going to the hospital. Maybe it'll come down. Now, Isabella. We're going now. He called 911, threw clothes into a bag, and stayed on the phone with Dr. Martinez while they waited for the ambulance. Isabella sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe through the pain, feeling the baby kick in protest. The ambulance ride was a blur of lights and sirens. At the hospital, they rushed her into labor and delivery, hooking her up to monitors while doctors and nurses moved around her with controlled urgency. Dr. Martinez arrived looking grim. Isabella, your blood pressure is dangerously high. We've tried medication, we've tried bed rest, but it's not coming down. I need to deliver the baby today. It's too early. She's only 32 weeks, which gives her a good chance in the NICU. But if we wait, you could have a seizure or a stroke. I'm not willing to risk that. Ooh, Ryan gripped her hand. What are the risks? To the baby? At 32 weeks, most babies do well with NICU support. She'll need help breathing, probably some time in an incubator. But the survival rate is over 95%. Doctor, Martinez looked at Isabella. I know this isn't the plan, but it's the safest option for both of you. Isabella felt tears burning her eyes. I wanted more time. I know, but sometimes we don't get more time. Sometimes we have to work with what we have. They prepped her for a C-section. Ryan scrubbed in, sitting beside her head while doctors worked behind a blue curtain. Isabella couldn't see what was happening, could only feel the pressure and pulling and the terror that something would go wrong. "You're doing great," Ryan kept saying. "Just breathe. It's almost over." And then, cutting through the antiseptic smell and beeping monitors, Isabella heard it, a small, angry cry. "She's here," Dr. Martinez said. "You have a daughter." Isabella tried to see, but they were already rushing the baby to a team of NICU doctors waiting in the corner. She caught a glimpse of something tiny and red and moving before they whisked her away. "Is she okay?" Isabella's voice cracked. "She's breathing. That's the important part. They're taking her upstairs to the NICU. Ryan can go with her if he wants." Ryan looked torn, his eyes moving between Isabella and the doors where their daughter had disappeared. "Go?" Isabella said. "Stay with her. I'll be okay." "You sure?" "Yes." "Go." He kissed her forehead and left. Isabella lay on the operating table while they finished the surgery, feeling emptier than she'd ever felt in her life. They moved her to recovery. A nurse came in with a tablet showing photos from the NICU, a tiny baby with tubes and wires, her eyes closed, her whole body barely bigger than Ryan's hand. 3 pounds, 2 ounces, the nurse said gently. "Small but mighty. She's holding her own so far." "Can I see her?" "Once you're stable enough to be in a wheelchair. A few more hours." Those hours felt like years. Isabella lay in the recovery room, her body aching, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. She'd failed. Failed to carry her daughter to term, failed to protect her, failed at the one thing that was supposed to be natural. When they finally wheeled her to the NICU, Ryan was standing outside the isolette where their daughter lay sleeping. He looked exhausted and terrified and awed all at once. "Hey," he said softly when he saw Isabella. "Come meet our girl." The nurse helped Isabella into a wheelchair positioned beside the isolette. Through the plastic walls, she could see her daughter, impossibly small, hooked up to machines that breathed for her and monitored her and kept her alive. "Can I touch her?" Isabella whispered. "Through the ports." The nurse showed her the openings in the isolette. "Keep your touch gentle. She needs lots of rest." Isabella slipped her hand through the opening and carefully touched her daughter's hand. Tiny fingers, paper-thin skin, a grip that was surprisingly strong when they wrapped around Isabella's finger. "Hi, baby," Isabella breathed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't keep you safe longer." "You kept her safe as long as you could," Ryan said quietly. "That's all anyone can do." They sat there for hours, taking turns touching their daughter through the isolette ports, watching her breathe with mechanical assistance, willing her to be strong enough to survive. The days that followed were a blur of NICU visits and doctor consultations and learning medical terminology Isabella never wanted to know. Their daughter, they still hadn't named her, couldn't agree on anything that felt right, was holding steady but not improving. The doctor said it would take time. Premature babies took 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But on the 4th day, she took a step back that turned into a fall. Isabella was home, against her will, but her blood pressure had finally stabilized and the doctors insisted she rest when Ryan called. "You need to come back. Now." "What happened?" "Her oxygen levels dropped. They're running tests, but—" His voice cracked. "Just get here. Please." The drive to the hospital took forever. Isabella's hand shook on the steering wheel. Mitchell's voice in her head reminding her she wasn't supposed to be driving yet. Her own voice telling her she didn't care. In the NICU, doctors surrounded their daughter's isolette. Ryan stood to the side, his face gray. "What's happening?" Isabella demanded. Dr. Patel, the neonatologist, turned to her. "She has an infection. We've started antibiotics, but her lungs are struggling. We might need to put her on a ventilator." "Do it. Do whatever you need to do." "The ventilator is invasive. It can cause its own complications. But without it, she might not be able to breathe on her own. I don't care about complications. I care about keeping her alive." Dr. Patel nodded and went back to the isolette. Isabella and Ryan stood together, holding hands, watching their daughter fight for her life while doctors worked to save her. It took 3 hours to stabilize her. 3 hours of watching monitors, listening to alarms, feeling completely helpless while their baby struggled with every breath. When it was finally over, when the doctor said she was stable for now, Isabella sank into a chair and let herself break. Ryan knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms while she sobbed against his shoulder. "She's so small," Isabella gasped. "She's too small for this. I know, but she's fighting. She's got your stubbornness." What if it's not enough? Then we'll deal with it, together. But right now, she's here. She's alive. That's what matters. They stayed at the hospital that night, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs in the NICU family room. In the morning, the doctor said their daughter was responding to the antibiotics. Her oxygen levels were improving. "She's not out of the woods yet," Dr. Patel cautioned, "but she's moving in the right direction." Over the next week, their daughter slowly, painfully got stronger. The ventilator came out. The breathing tube was downgraded to a nasal cannula. She started gaining weight, an ounce at a time, but it was progress. And finally, 3 weeks after she was born, Isabella got to hold her. The nurse helped position her in a special chair, showed her how to support the baby's head with all the wires and tubes still attached. Then, carefully, they lifted the tiny bundle and placed her in Isabella's arms. She was warm. That was the first thing Isabella noticed. Warm and solid and real, in a way all the isolette visits hadn't quite captured. "Hi, sweetheart," Isabella whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mom. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." The baby's eyes fluttered open, dark blue, unfocused, but looking in Isabella's direction. Her hand, no bigger than a walnut, gripped Isabella's finger. Ryan took about 100 photos, his own eyes red. "She knows you." "You think?" "I know. Look at her." Their daughter yawned, a tiny motion that made Isabella's heart crack open. This was what mattered. Not the company, not the press, not the board, or the shareholders, or any of it. Just this tiny person who'd fought so hard to be here. "We need to name her," Isabella said. "I know. Any ideas?" Isabella thought about the past few months, the fear and chaos and unexpected grace. She thought about Lily's drawings and Ryan's steady presence and this little fighter in her arms. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." Ryan smiled, soft and genuine. "Yeah, that's perfect." Hope came home on a Tuesday in March, 2 months after she was born and 3 weeks past her original due date. She weighed 5 pounds, 4 ounces, still tiny, but healthy enough that the NICU doctors finally agreed to discharge her. Isabella stood in the nursery she'd spent the last month preparing, holding her daughter and trying not to panic. The room was nothing like the rest of her penthouse. Soft yellows and greens, a rocking chair Ryan had insisted on, shelves already filling with books Lily had picked out. It looked lived in, real. "You ready for this?" Ryan asked from the doorway. He had dark circles under his eyes from weeks of splitting time between the hospital, work, and Lily. "No, absolutely not." Isabella adjusted Hope in her arms. The baby was sleeping, her tiny face peaceful in a way that made Isabella's chest ache. "What if I mess this up?" "You will. Everyone does." Ryan came over, touching Hope's hand gently. "But you'll figure it out. We both will." The first night was hell. Hope woke up every 2 hours, crying with a force that seemed impossible for someone so small. Isabella fumbled through diaper changes and feedings, her hands shaking with exhaustion and fear that she was doing everything wrong. At 4 in the morning, with Hope screaming and Isabella on the verge of tears herself, Ryan appeared in the doorway. "Here," he said, taking the baby. "Let me." "I should be able to do this." "Oh, Isabella, you've been up all night. Sit down before you fall down." She sank into the rocking chair while Ryan walked the room with Hope, bouncing her gently and murmuring nonsense until the crying finally stopped. He made it look easy, natural, like he'd been doing this his whole life. "How do you know what to do?" Isabella asked. "Practice. Lots of practice." Ryan settled into the chair beside her, Hope dozing against his shoulder. With Lily, I was terrified too. Claire was better at this part. But after she died, I had to figure it out fast. You learn to read the cries, hungry, tired, uncomfortable, just mad at the world. Which one was that? Probably tired. She's had a long day. He smiled down at Hope. They all have long days at this age. Everything's new and overwhelming. Tell me about it. They sat in the dim nursery, listening to Hope's soft breathing. Outside, the city was still dark, but Isabella could see the first hints of dawn creeping across the skyline. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said quietly. "Sure." "What happens now, with us, I mean? We've been so focused on getting Hope home that we haven't really talked about the future." Isabella had been avoiding this conversation for months. They'd been living together, raising a baby together, but they'd never defined what they were to each other. More than co-parents, certainly. But what exactly? "I don't know," she admitted. "What do you want to happen?" Ryan looked at her, his expression serious in the half-light. "Honestly, I want to try. Not just for Hope, but for us. I know it's complicated and we did everything backward. But these last few months, getting to know you, seeing how hard you fight for what matters, I don't want that to end just because the crisis is over." Isabella's heart was pounding. "Ryan, I'm terrible at relationships. I work too much. I'm controlling. I don't know how to let people in. I know all that. I've lived with you for 2 months, remember? You reorganize my attempts at organizing. You check your phone during dinner even when I hide it. You think asking for help is a sign of weakness." He shifted Hope to his other shoulder. "But you also make me laugh. You're brilliant and driven, and you love our daughter so fiercely it scares you, and I don't want to walk away from that. What if I can't be what you need? What if you can? We won't know unless we try." Isabella looked at him, holding their daughter, this man who'd shown up for her again and again, even when she pushed him away. She thought about the life she'd built before, successful and impressive and completely empty. And then she thought about the chaos of the past few months, the terror and exhaustion and moments of grace she never would have experienced if she'd stayed in her glass tower, untouchable and alone. "Okay," she said. "Let's try." Ryan's smile was worth every bit of the fear churning in her stomach. "Yeah? Yeah, but I'm going to be bad at this. Fair warning." "I know. We'll figure it out as we go." Hope stirred, making small noises that meant she'd be awake and hungry soon. Ryan stood, handed her to Isabella. "Your turn. I'll make coffee." "It's 4:30 in the morning." "Exactly. We're going to need a lot of coffee." The days blurred together, feedings and diaper changes, and trying to sleep whenever Hope slept, which was never for long enough. Isabella had thought running a company was hard, but nothing had prepared her for the relentless exhaustion of caring for a newborn. Lily visited on the weekends, completely enamored with her baby sister. She wanted to hold her constantly, read to her, show her toys Hope was months away from understanding. "She's so little," Lily said one Saturday, carefully cradling Hope while sitting very still on the couch. "Was I ever this little?" "Smaller, actually," Ryan said. "You were 6 pounds even." "Wow, how did I survive?" Very carefully. Ryan took a photo of his daughters together, and Isabella felt something shift in her chest. This was her family now. Messy and complicated and nothing like she'd planned but hers. Mitchell called that afternoon, the first time they'd spoken since Hope came home. "How's motherhood?" he asked. "Exhausting. Terrifying. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time in a week." "Sounds about right." She could hear the smile in his voice. "The board wants to know when you're coming back." Isabella looked at Hope, sleeping in her bassinet, so small and fragile and completely dependent. "I don't know yet. Take your time. I've got things covered here." "How's it going, really?" "Good, actually. We closed the Singapore deal. Q1 numbers are strong. Morrison tried to stage a coup last month, but I shut it down." "Morrison did what?" "Relax. It's handled. He suggested to the board that maybe the interim arrangement should become permanent. I told him if he brought it up again, I'd make sure everyone knew about the expense report irregularities from last year." Despite everything, Isabella laughed. "You're enjoying this. Maybe a little. Turns out your job is kind of fun when you're not worried about people trying to take it from you every 5 minutes. Mitchell paused. "But seriously, Isabella, don't rush back. The company's fine. Focus on your daughter." "Mum, but some." After they hung up, Isabella stood at the window looking out at the city. For years, she'd measured her worth by her position in that skyline. The higher the floor, the more successful she was. But now, watching Ryan play with Lily while Hope slept nearby, Isabella realized something had shifted. The company would survive without her. It might even thrive. And that thought, which should have terrified her, felt almost like relief. The first time Isabella tried to go back to work, Hope was 6 weeks old. She'd arranged for a nanny to start that morning, someone with excellent references and years of experience. Everything was going to be fine. Hope had other plans. She screamed the moment the nanny tried to take her little face going red with outrage. Isabella tried to leave anyway, got as far as the elevator before turning around and coming back. "I can't do it," she told Ryan, who was trying not to laugh. "Then don't. Work from home." "I need to be in the office." "Why?" "Mitchell's handling the big stuff. You can do strategy calls from the dining table." Ryan took Hope, who immediately stopped crying. "Besides, she's only little once. You'll miss it if you're not careful." Isabella knew he was right. She'd seen it happen to other executives. They blinked and their kids were grown, and they'd missed everything in between. She didn't want that, but she also didn't know how to be the person who stayed home while someone else ran her company. "What if I lose myself in this?" she asked quietly. "What if I stop being the person who built Kane Technologies and just become someone's mother?" "You think those are mutually exclusive?" "Aren't they?" Ryan adjusted Hope in his arms, thinking. "When Claire died, I thought I had to choose. Be Lily's dad or keep my career. I couldn't do both, not well. So I chose her, and yeah, it cost me promotions and opportunities. But I don't regret it. Because the truth is, the work would have been there either way. But Lily needed me then, in that moment, and I needed to be there for her. But you're not the CEO of a billion-dollar company." "No, but I'm also not missing my daughter's childhood. There's a trade-off either way. You just have to decide which one you can live with." Isabella looked at Hope, who was making little cooing sounds and waving her tiny fists. In a few months, she'd be rolling over. In a year, walking. The time was going to pass, whether Isabella was present for it or not. She picked up her phone and called Mitchell. "I'm not coming back," she said when he answered. "What?" "Not yet. Maybe not for a while. I need you to keep running things." There was a long pause. "Isabella, are you sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." She took a breath. "Draw up a formal agreement, interim CEO, 6 months renewable, full authority to make decisions. I'll consult on major strategy, but day-to-day is yours." "The board's going to have opinions about this." "The board can deal with it. I'm still majority shareholder. They don't get to tell me how to run my life." "All right then." Mitchell sounded almost impressed. "I'll draft the paperwork, but Isabella, this is the right choice, even if it doesn't feel like it yet." After she hung up, Ryan was grinning. "That was very mature of you. Don't get used to it. I'm probably going to regret this in a week." "Maybe. But right now you made the right call." Isabella wasn't so sure. But when Hope grabbed her finger and held on tight, some of the doubt faded. The apartment started changing. Isabella had lived there for 3 years, and it had always looked like a showroom, pristine and untouched. Now there were baby supplies everywhere, toys scattered across the floor, bottles drying in the kitchen sink. Lily's drawings covered the refrigerator. Ryan's work documents shared space with Isabella's on the dining table. It was messy and chaotic, and nothing like Isabella had ever imagined her life would look. And somehow, it felt more like home than anywhere she'd ever lived. Ryan officially moved in that spring, not because they had to, but because it stopped making sense for him to keep his house across town when he was barely there. They talked about finding a bigger place, somewhere with a yard for the girls, but neither of them quite ready to leave the penthouse yet. "We'll look this summer," Ryan said, scrolling through real estate listings while Hope dozed on his chest. "Something with good schools nearby for Lily. And a home office. I'm still going to work, just differently." "I know, that's fine. We'll figure it out." That phrase, "we'll figure it out," had become their default response to everything. Neither of them had answers, but they were learning that was okay. They didn't need to have it all planned out. They just needed to show up and try. The board meeting came in May, Isabella's first time back in the office since Hope was born. She'd arranged for Ryan to watch both girls, put on her sharpest suit, and walked into that conference room like she owned it. Because she did. The board members looked surprised to see her. Morrison looked downright uncomfortable. "Gentlemen," Isabella said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "Thank you for accommodating my schedule. I know these past few months have been unconventional." "That's one word for it," Martin Webb said. "We're glad to see you recovering, but there are concerns about leadership continuity. I'm aware, which is why I'm here to formalize the arrangement with Mitchell. He'll continue as CEO for the next 6 months, with option to renew. I'll remain as board chair and strategic advisor. And after 6 months, we'll reassess. But I'm not walking away from this company. I'm just running it differently. Morrison cleared his throat. With respect, the optics of this situation, a female CEO stepping back after having a baby, sends the wrong message. Isabella looked at him with the same expression she used to shut down bad ideas in pitch meetings. The optics of me having a medical emergency and making decisions about my own health and family are none of your concern. I'm not stepping back because I'm a woman who had a baby. I'm restructuring my role because it makes sense for the company and my life. Those are not the same thing. But the press can say whatever they want. They've been doing it for months. I stopped caring what they think around the time they called my daughter's father a gold digger. She leaned forward. Here's what's actually happening. Mitchell is doing an excellent job. The company is performing well, and I'm making sure my family is taken care of while staying involved in major strategic decisions. If any of you have a problem with that, you're welcome to leave. No one moved. Good. Now, let's talk about Q2 projections. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, the board had approved the formal arrangement with Mitchell, signed off on the Singapore expansion, and stopped questioning Isabella's decisions. When it was over, Mitchell walked her to the elevator. "That was impressive," he said. "I've been rehearsing that speech for a week." "Well, it worked." Morrison looked like he wanted to disappear. "Good. Maybe he'll finally back off." Isabella pressed the button for the parking garage. "How's it really going? Running the company? Honestly, I love it, which is kind of surprising. I always thought I was happy in the CFO role, but having the full picture, making the big calls, it's energizing." He paused. "Does that bother you?" "No, it's a relief, actually. Means I made the right choice." "You did. For what it's worth, I think you're doing something important. Showing that you can be successful without sacrificing everything else. I'm not sacrificing my career. I'm just adjusting it. I know, but a lot of people don't see the difference." Mitchell smiled. "You're going to get criticized for this. You know that, right? People who think you are betraying women by stepping back. People who think you're betraying the company by not being there 24/7. Let them criticize. I stopped living for other people's approval a long time ago." She meant it. The press had spent months dissecting every choice she made, and Isabella had learned to tune it out. The only opinions that mattered were her own and the people she loved. Ryan was in the kitchen when she got home, making dinner while both girls occupied themselves. Lily with homework at the table, Hope in her bouncy seat making happy gurgling sounds. "How'd it go, what?" he asked. "Better than expected. The board approved everything." Morrison sulked. "Mitchell's officially CEO for the next 6 months. And how do you feel about that?" Isabella picked up Hope, who immediately grabbed a fistful of her hair. "Honestly? Relieved. I thought I'd feel like I was giving up, but it just feels like I'm making room for something better." "That's growth. You're allowed to be proud of that." "I'm trying." She sat down at the table next to Lily. "How was your day?" "Good. We learned about fractions. They're stupid, but Ms. Peterson says they're important." Lily looked up from her math worksheet. "Can you help me with number 7? A year ago, Isabella wouldn't have known how to help with third-grade math. Now she walked Lily through the problem, while Hope dozed in her arms and Ryan finished dinner, and it felt normal, like this was what her life was supposed to look like. They ate together at the table Isabella had never used before Ryan moved in. Lily told stories about her day, exaggerating wildly while Ryan tried to fact-check. Hope woke up and needed to be fed. It was chaotic and loud and messy. Isabella had never been happier. That night, after both girls were asleep and the apartment was finally quiet, Ryan found Isabella on the balcony looking out at the city. "You okay?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Yeah, just thinking. About how different everything is. A year ago, I was convinced my life was complete. I had the company, the success, everything I thought I wanted. And now," she leaned back against him, "now I have this instead. And it's better. Even the hard parts. You don't miss it, the old life?" Sometimes I miss the simplicity of it. Just work, just climbing higher, just proving myself over and over. Isabella turned to face him. But I don't miss being lonely, and I was lonely, even if I didn't admit it. I built this perfect empire and stood at the top of it completely alone. You're not alone anymore. No, I'm not. She kissed him, soft and certain. Thank you. For staying, for pushing me to be better, for making me try even when I wanted to run away. You don't have to thank me for that. I'm exactly where I want to be. They stood there for a while, holding each other, while the city lights flickered below. Isabella thought about all the nights she'd stood on this balcony alone, watching the world move without her. She'd thought she was above it all, separate and superior. But the truth was, she'd just been isolated. And it had taken a crisis, a pregnancy she didn't plan with a man she barely knew, to break through those walls she'd spent years building. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent her whole life trying to avoid exactly this kind of complication. And it had ended up being the best thing that ever happened to her. Hope's first word was Dada, which Ryan never let Isabella forget. Her first steps were at 10 months, earlier than anyone expected for a preemie. She was small but fierce, stubborn and determined in ways that reminded Isabella of herself. Lily was the best big sister Isabella could have imagined. She read to Hope every night, helped with feedings, and appointed herself the official guardian against anything that might upset her baby sister. I'm the protector, she announced one day with complete seriousness, like a bodyguard, but for free. That's very noble of you, Isabella said, trying not to laugh. I know. I'm basically a hero. Ryan had proposed on a random Tuesday in October. No grand gesture or elaborate planning. They were on the couch, watching Hope play with blocks, while Lily did homework, and he just said it. We should get married. Isabella looked up from her laptop. What? Married. You and me. We're basically already doing it, just without the paperwork. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. Probably, but it's honest. Ryan shifted to face her. Look, I know we did everything backward. Baby first, relationship second, but we're making it work. And I love you. So we might as well make it official. You love me? Of course I love you. Have for months. I thought that was obvious. You never said it. I'm saying it now. He took her hand. I love you, Isabella Kane. You're stubborn and controlling, and you still reorganize my organizational systems. But you're also brilliant and brave, and you love our daughters with everything you have, and I want to spend the rest of my life figuring this out with you. Isabella felt tears burning her eyes. That's better. Still not great, but better. Is that a yes? I love you too. And yes, we should probably get married. Probably? Definitely. We should definitely get married. Ryan kissed her, and Lily made gagging sounds from the table while Hope clapped her little hands together like she understood what was happening. They got married that December, small ceremony with just close friends and family. Isabella wore a simple dress, not the elaborate gown magazines would have expected. Lily was the flower girl and took her job incredibly seriously, scattering petals with meticulous precision. Hope toddled down the aisle in Ryan's arms, grabbing at his tie. It wasn't the fairy tale wedding Isabella had never wanted anyway. It was messy and real and perfect. Standing at the altar, Isabella looked at her family, Ryan and Lily and Hope, and felt something she'd spent 30 years chasing through boardrooms and corner offices. She felt complete. The press coverage was predictably invasive. Photos of the ceremony showed up online within hours. Think pieces about female CEOs and work-life balance proliferating like weeds. Isabella ignored most of it, but one article caught her attention. It was an op-ed written by a young woman in tech, talking about how Isabella's choices had given her permission to reimagine success. How seeing a powerful woman step back from her company to prioritize family had made her realize those weren't opposing forces. That's what I wanted to do, the article said. Build something meaningful and have a life outside of it. But I thought I had to choose. Isabella Kane showed me I don't. Success can look different than we've been told, and that's okay. Isabella read it twice, then showed it to Ryan. You're changing the narrative, he said. I'm just living my life. That's how narratives change, one person at a time deciding to do things differently. Isabella thought about that. She'd spent so long trying to prove she belonged in rooms full of men, that she could be just as ruthless and dedicated and untouchable. And she'd succeeded. But in doing so, she had almost lost the chance at this. At love and family and a life that felt full instead of just accomplished. The truth was, you didn't have to sacrifice everything to be successful. You just had to be willing to redefine what success meant. For Isabella, it used to mean being on top, being untouchable, being in complete control. Now it meant coming home to Ryan, making dinner while Lily helped, and Hope made a mess with her building blocks. It meant board meetings via video call with a baby on her lap. It meant delegating and trusting and admitting she couldn't do everything alone. It meant being human instead of invincible. And that, Isabella had learned, took more strength than anything she'd done before. On Hope's first birthday, they threw a party at the penthouse. It was chaos. Kids from Lily's class running around, relatives Isabella barely knew showing up with gifts, cake and decorations everywhere. The pristine white apartment Isabella had once been so proud of was covered in streamers and fingerprints and joy. Hope smashed her first piece of cake with enthusiastic destruction, getting frosting in her hair and all over her dress. She laughed, that pure toddler giggle that made everyone else laugh too. Isabella stood back and watched it all, Ryan's arm around her waist. "You did good," he said quietly. "We did good. Both of us." "Yeah, we did." Mitchell showed up late, apologetic about a meeting that ran long. He brought an elaborate gift and an update about the company that Isabella only half listened to. "I'm boring you," he said finally. "No, I'm here right now. The company stuff can wait." Mitchell smiled. "Look at you, setting boundaries. I'm impressed." "Don't get used to it. I'm still terrible at it most of the time." Maybe. But you're getting better." After the party, after everyone had left and the girls were asleep, Isabella and Ryan collapsed on the couch, surrounded by wrapping paper and dishes they were too tired to clean. "That was exhausting," Isabella said. "Worth it, though." "Yeah, worth it." Ryan pulled her close. "You know what I love about us?" "What?" "We have no idea what we're doing most of the time, but we keep showing up anyway." Isabella laughed. "That's what you love? Our complete lack of preparation?" "Our willingness to try even when we're terrified. That's what I love." He kissed her temple. "A year ago, you would have tried to plan this whole thing perfectly. But today, you just let it be messy. That's growth. I'm learning, slowly. Aren't we all?" They sat there in the wreckage of the party, too tired to move but too content to care. Outside, the city glittered in the dark. Inside, their daughters slept peacefully, safe and loved. Isabella thought about the woman she'd been a year and a half ago, terrified and alone and convinced she had to control everything. That woman wouldn't recognize this life, the mess, the compromise, the way Isabella had learned to ask for help instead of muscling through everything alone. But that woman had been missing something essential. She'd been successful but not happy, accomplished but not fulfilled. This version of Isabella, the one with cake in her hair and a sleeping toddler down the hall, and a husband who loved her despite all her sharp edges, she was both. Successful and happy, accomplished and fulfilled. It hadn't been easy getting here. The road had been messy and terrifying and nothing like she planned. But then, the best things rarely were. Isabella had spent 30 years building an empire. But in the end, what mattered most was what she'd built with Ryan and their daughters. Not a company that would eventually be sold or absorbed or made obsolete, but a family that would last. That was the real legacy. Not glass towers or quarterly earnings or her name in steel letters, but love and connection and the willingness to be vulnerable enough to let people in. She'd been so afraid of losing control, of showing weakness, of needing anyone, and in the end, letting go of all that had been the strongest thing she'd ever done. "Hey," Ryan said, pulling her from her thoughts. "Where'd you go?" "Just thinking about how different everything is." "Good different or bad different?" "Good. Definitely good." She turned to look at him. "I never thought I could have this. A real life, not just a resume. I thought I had to choose. And now? Now I know better. You can have both. It just looks different than I expected." Isabella smiled. "Better than I expected." Ryan kissed her, soft and certain. "I love you. You know that?" "I know. I love you too." In the nursery down the hall, Hope stirred and made small sounds. Isabella started to get up, but Ryan stopped her. "I got it," You stay here. She watched him go, this man who'd changed her entire life by refusing to walk away when things got complicated. Then she looked around at the apartment full of evidence that she was no longer alone, toys and family photos, and the beautiful mess of an actual life being lived. Isabella Kane had spent 30 years building something she thought would last. And she had, just not in the way she'd imagined. This, messy and imperfect and completely unplanned, was what lasted. Love, family, connection. The rest was just details. And for the first time in her life, Isabella was okay with that. More than okay. She was grateful, because sometimes the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming. The mistakes that turned into miracles. The complications that became the very thing that saved you. She'd started this journey terrified and alone, convinced she'd ruined everything. But she'd ended it with more than she'd ever dared to dream. And that, Isabella thought as Ryan came back carrying their sleepy daughter, was the real victory. Not conquering the world, but letting the world in. Not being invincible, but being brave enough to be human. That was the story she wanted to tell. Not about a billionaire who had it all, but about a woman who learned that having it all meant something entirely different than she'd been taught. It meant having people who loved you even when you were difficult. It meant building something that mattered beyond profit margins. It meant being strong enough to ask for help and vulnerable enough to accept it. Isabella had spent her whole life trying to prove she didn't need anyone. And in the end, needing people, letting them in, trusting them, loving them, had been the most powerful thing she'd ever done. Hope yawned and reached for Isabella, tiny fingers grabbing. Ryan handed her over, settling back on the couch beside them. "Perfect ending to a perfect day," he said. Isabella looked down at her daughter, then at her husband, then around at the life they'd built together from absolutely nothing. "Yeah," she said softly. "Perfect."